Good morning and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. I'm Mike Graham and I look as if I'm a bit further away than I normally am. How's that happened? But that's fine, I don't mind. It just means you see my mug, right? You can see the old, you can see the water there. Here we go. Ooh. Getting a bit closer. Sorry about that. Listen, you never know how the show's going to start. That's one of the reasons we love it so much. It is the Mike Graham Show. It says so right there. It's 1 minute past 7. For those of you who say, why don't you start on time? We are on time. It's amazing to see you this morning. It is Tuesday the 7th of July. It is the night after another World Cup scenario where the front pages this morning are all covered in all sorts of stories about Donald Trump interfering in the glorious, wonderful, marvellous world of football, which is so clean that you could never, ever hold it up to ridicule by pretending that it was in some way pure. Because it says on the front page of the Daily Mail, bend it like Trump, fury over red card, foul play, global astonishment as he says World Cup ref who sent off US star striker is suspect and gets a ban overturned. The problem is it's 24 hours too late because the game's happened now. America lost last night to Belgium 4-1, so they're out of the tournament anyway. It doesn't really matter. But I love the idea that all these footballers and football kind of aficionados who basically watch a game week in, week out, where people fall over themselves, writhe around in agony and then they're fine again 2 seconds later and basically cheat their way to winning things, are talking about the integrity of the game. But perhaps for another day for that. Good morning, Mike, from Mackay Island, Queensland. Australia, KCC, good morning. Very nice to see you. Front page of The Sun goes pretty much more Route 1, though, which is all about Harry, because yesterday, during the show, amazingly, I was able to break the news that Harry, and I thought it was quite a big story, was going to stay at Buckingham Palace during his visit here, because he's apparently here now. He got in last night. He's here for about 4 days. It's not clear whether he's brought his lovely wife with him, Meghan, or the kids. And literally within an hour, the game was up. So his people put out a message saying that he was going to stay at Buckingham Palace. And then Buckingham Palace basically denied it and said, well, he was going to stay, but in fact, he said he couldn't stay there. Then by the time he did say he wanted to stay there, it was too late. And so now he can't. So now he's not staying at Buckingham Palace. Instead, we think he might be staying up at Althorp, where his mother is indeed interned. Anyway, so let's talk now to Russell Quirk, who is, of course, right here. It's Tuesday. He's going to tell us what he thinks of what's going on in the Post. Russell, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Yeah, very well indeed. I mean, I'm taking the opportunities not to talk about Burnham or Starmer for a few minutes. So please, allow me to do that because we'll get to them in a minute. But it's a bit unfortunate, isn't it? I know you're not a football fan, but the amount of Trump bashing that's going on the front pages today because everybody's up in arms. Isn't it terrible that a beautiful game, this pure sport, which has never been entangled in any kind of scandal, and certainly doesn't have any players cheating and falling about and trying to get penalties when there aren't penalties and all of that. Red card rows kicking off. Well, it's all over because, America are out the World Cup anyway. We got beaten 4-1 last night.
Yeah, it does sound a bit like sour grapes, doesn't it? I'm just flabbergasted that this is front page news. I mean, yeah. I know I'm not a football guy. And I'm sure if Mark Littlewood was in my chair right now, he would wax lyrical for the next 45 minutes about how important this is to kind of world affairs. But it's not. It's football. It's game. And look, there's also, apparently on the front page of The Independent, Starmer intervened, apparently, our own temporary boss of this country, with regard to the start time of the England game. So it looks like politicians are at it left, right and centre getting involved.
Yeah, I think that's the worst story I've seen all week, actually, and possibly in this month. And I know it's only the 7th of July, but Jack Elson put that out from The Sun yesterday. And I just thought, what a load of old cobblers. This is Downing Street are basically trying to make out that Keir Starmer's got some influence. I don't think he does. And I don't think he did.
Apparently, his motive was to ensure. I mean, I'm sure that this doesn't go through Starmer's mind in terms of his thought process. He was thinking about oxygen. Now, I would suggest that maybe Keir Starmer at some point in his life might have been have a brain that was starved of oxygen. He apparently was very keen that the players would arrive in Mexico because, of course, famously they didn't go to Mexico early to acclimatise to the altitude. But he thought if the game was pulled forward to 7 p.m. our time rather than 1 a.m. or whatever it was going to be, that they wouldn't acclimatise and therefore they would be at a disadvantage. And yes, that seems like absolute nonsense. I know Starmer has got time on his hands now because he's about to be unemployed, but I don't think that would have crossed his tiny brain. Do you?
No, of course not. No, it wouldn't. He's too busy sort of cementing his own legacy and giving and sort of one interview a day to people that don't ask him anything difficult, where he tells them all what a brilliant job he's done. Shortly before, as he puts it, handing over the baton to the next guy, as if it's some kind of sort of Lord Mayor's position he's got. He was elected to be the Prime Minister. He's now been forced out of the job because he's crap at it. And you've done it to me again. We're talking about Starmer already. But we were supposed to be talking about something else, for heaven's sake.
Not help it. He's just so tempting. It's such a delicious subject.
I know.
I was going to say one more kind of morsel of Starmer, if I may. In America, as a president, obviously, when you leave, you end up with a library being built. This should be your poll. What would we build for Starmer's legacy?
That's a great one. That's a great poll. Yeah, I'll tell you what, we'll do that. We'll do that this week because we've already got a poll today, which is what would you do with Prince Harry? Which I don't know whether we've got. Can we flash that up yet? On the grounds that here he is. I mean, again, very confusing story yesterday. It was revealed by Harry's people that basically he was going to come and stay at Buckingham Palace. And everyone went, oh, there's been some rapprochement then. There's been some kind of, deal has been done. What should we do with Harry? Send him to the Tower, 16%. Exile him to the Chagos Islands, 5%. Make him live with Andrew, 29%, or make him stay married to Meghan, 50%, which is probably punishment enough at the end of the day. I don't even know if she's come with him. It's not very clear.
Probably not. She hasn't been here for years, has she?
No.
I think even she knows. I mean, even she knows, given that, she's got a pretty thick skin, that she's not popular here in Britain. So, yeah, I don't think she's coming. And where's he going to stay then? He's hardly going to end up in an Airbnb in Bayswater, is he?
In fact, it's a great. Actually, I must point out this is my favourite headline of the day in the Sun. Inside on page, where are we? No, it's all about England. One is not an Airbnb, spelled H-E-I-R.
Airbnb.
Airbnb. Well, that's quite good, isn't it? But apparently the king lost his temper with his son because of his dithering and buggering about, basically, because he was supposedly originally going to say yes, he would love to stay at Buckingham Palace, but then he said no, and then he changed his mind again and said yes, and at which time they said, well, we're still refurbing the place, you know a bit about that in your business, and they said, it's too late now, so now you can't stay there.
Well, they said the room has been allocated to somebody else. So that's hilarious, isn't it? That
it's brilliant, isn't it?
You might be, the king's second son, but yeah, there's no room at the inn for you, despite the fact that Buckingham Palace has just had 360 million quid spent on it,
right.
And I think it's got about 130 rooms. But no,
I think it's got 240 bedrooms, but they can't find one for him.
Yeah, take that as a hint, Harry.
Yes. It's a bit like saying, we've got a huge, massive majority, hundreds and hundreds of Labour MPs, but we can't find any one of them to run the country, so we'll just have to go and get Andy Burnham from Manchester and get him to come down instead.
Yeah.
So we'll have to put up with Harry being in London and appearing at various things, I suppose, for a while. Fraser Bailey says Harry can stay in one of Angela Rayner's many homes. Well, we'll get to Angela Rayner in a bit. She was unbelievably given a show at LBC yesterday.
I railed against this because, of course, we've got all this stuff going on with Nigel Farage and how outrageous it is that he's popular enough and successful enough to earn a few quid on the side, totally within the rules, by the way. And literally minutes later, not only is Angela Rayner appearing on LBC, which I'm imagining she will be paid for, the fact that obviously David Lammy, as an MP, had a show on LBC for some time, which he definitely got paid for. But also there's a lineup, apparently. It's not just Angela Rayner. There's many others on the Labour front benches that are also going to be guest hosting LBC shows. You think, and also Angela Rayner, again, not being publicised because it doesn't fit the mainstream media narrative. She apparently earned £19,000 for a 20-minute speech last week. And about 3 weeks ago, I can tell you that she was at a Property Mark conference in my industry as the guest of honour keynote speaker, for which allegedly she earned £15,000. She was there for an hour. Why is this not being publicised?
Yeah, I know. Well, as Richard Tice keeps pointing out, what about the 4 million quid that the Labour Party received as a donation from some hedge fund in the Cayman Islands, which doesn't seem to have been given too much scrutiny, not least by the Labour government, who say that foreign investors into British government are terrible.
Do you know the most hilarious donation politically over the last few years, and the Lib Dems have desperately tried to cover this up, was from a gentleman named David Brown, I think, who is a convicted criminal and fraudster that gave about £2 million to the Liberal Democrats a while back. The Lib Dems obviously had it tumbled. The media actually did call that out and say, yeah, I'm not sure this is right. I think he was also on the run, something like that. And they refused to give it back. So they spent the money. They spent the money. I mean, but that's okay, apparently. But Nigel earning 200 grand from being popular and successful, hosting some kind of gold trading ad. Oh, no, that's outrageous. That's outrageous.
But but there's clearly much more to it than that, isn't there? There's clearly some kind of, concerted campaign going on where every sort of week they're going to try and find something else to have a go at him over and something else to accuse him of doing. And he supposedly, news today is that he's supposedly being interviewed, we think today, by the watchdog in Parliament. But apparently they won't make a decision on whatever happens to him, whether he gets suspended or not, until September.
Yeah, and isn't it funny how the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner, who obviously has launched this investigation, didn't bother launching an investigation against Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer when they were taking, all and sundry from Wahid Ali, glasses, clothes, the use of penthouse flats in Covent Garden worth 20 million quid. And lots of people on social media saying, yes, but that was declared. Well, do you know what Rachel Reeves declared some of that stuff as originally? Office expenses. Yeah,
well, it wasn't declared. That's completely untrue, because part of the problem was that they didn't declare it. And part of the other problem with the use of old Ali's flat, or penthouse, as you quite rightly call it, in Covent Garden, was that he made out that he was using that as an office space, and he was filming videos and things there, which were absolutely nothing related to his campaigning. And yet, somehow, it wasn't declared as part of his work scenario.
Yeah, well, he also said, of course, that it was used for his son to study for his GCSEs, even though apparently the window that he was there for was after the GCSEs.
This is the point. The whole idea that Nigel Farage is the only person in political life who should be put under scrutiny because he's doing things which he shouldn't be doing is an absolute joke. Have a look at this. We've actually got a clip of Angela Rayner hilariously referring to the transparency problem with Nigel Farage. Check this out.
This is eye-watering amounts of money. The obvious question to that is, what's his donors getting in return? And why has he tried to cover them up and to avoid legitimate questions? I don't think that Nigel can shrug this scandal off and hope that it goes away. I think this one's got lots of legs and it's going to carry on running. And he seems to have a bit of flexible relationship with the transparency, and that is me being diplomatic and putting it mildly.
Angela. Let me just point out in the Times this morning, Tom Peck has done a great political sketch on her show, right? In which he says the only thing that made it all slightly odd is the person doing the asking of these questions is the former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner at the start of a 3-hour slot as LBC's mid-morning guest host. She sounded as if she'd forgotten she might at some point have had something to do with the government, forgotten that it was she who introduced a £39 billion investment in social housing and the Workers' Rights Bill, and had then been forced to resign for not quite paying the correct amount of tax.
Yes, hypocrisy, I think they call that.
Yes.
But can we also turn our attention to the fact that Labour for decades has been primarily funded by the unions, right? So the likes of whatever, the GMB and so on. So the unions have almost mandated that their members pay a levy that goes to the Labour Party. Now, if we want to talk about influence, we want to talk about what you get for your money as a donor and that being apparently inappropriate. Yeah. Well, hang on, the Labour Party were built on those donations. So I would ask, what undue influence have the unions had on the Labour Party? Because surely that's a scandal that we should be unwrapping. I mean, why is that not under scrutiny, Mike?
Well, it's a very good question. What we can say is that an awful lot of billions and billions and billions of our taxpayers' money has been paid out to the junior doctors, has been paid out to train drivers, has been paid out to members of staff of the TfL, Transport for London, and various other public sector workers who have all been given a massive gift in return for their votes, basically. It's as simple as that. And that's what's been going on for years. And as you say, it's hardly whiter than white, is it?
And also the fact, as I read last night, that there have been a number of donors to the Labour Party that, by complete coincidence, gave about £500,000 to the Labour Party just before the general election.
Yeah.
And since then, in the last 2 years, again, I mean, it's just there is no connection here whatsoever to the fact that 500 million has then led to those companies receiving hundreds of millions of pounds of government contracts. I mean, there's no link there, though, right?
Uncanny, yeah, uncanny. I mean, the thing is, if you do give money to a political party, you probably do expect to get something in return. I don't think anybody should be surprised about that. I mean, why would you? Unless you're so filthy, stinking rich, and maybe Christopher Hardball is, and he can afford to give £5 million away to Nigel Farage as a gift. With good luck to him. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying, unless you've got that kind of crazy money, if you're a company or you're in business in some way, shape, or form, and you give money to a member of what will later become a government, of course you expect something back.
Well, but I think the motive for donors and the motive for the parties receiving those donations is simply because there is a general consensus on ideology, vision, if you like, right?
Yeah.
We all know what reform stand for, particularly when it comes to low tax, being free enterprise, being pro-business and so on. Why wouldn't a business person that employs people and wants to invest in Britain back a party that ultimately, as a consequence of those policies in government, that he's going to indirectly benefit from? There's nothing wrong with that. And that, again, is no different to the donors that donate to the Labour Party that like that particular direction of travel. Let's call one of them out in particular, Dale Vince.
Yeah.
Dale Vince has donated to the Labour Party in spades, and it's no coincidence that Dale's ideology and the Labour Party's ideology on net zero and sustainable energy are the same. And Dale, I think it's fair to say, Mike, has had rather a significant amount of taxpayer subsidised contracts given to him that relate to government and sustainable energy.
Yeah.
Where's the outrage there?
Oh, I know. Well, I used to get him on the show. I don't know if he's ever going to come on this show because I don't know if we asked Dale Vince to come on. We can ask him. But anyway, we used to get him on.
Not to be confused with Jim Dale, your favourite guest.
Jim Dale, I mean, he's such an idiot, right? He's not really worth banning. He's not really worth banning, I don't think. But he's quite an unpleasant character as well. But Dale Vince, actually, I didn't used to mind because he would come on and sort of say, I don't care what they do with the money. I'd be like, really? Okay, then. Because an awful lot of it is about access, isn't it? It's so that you can, if you are somebody who's given a few £1 million, you can just ring the guy up and go, sorry, can I speak to the Prime Minister? Who's speaking? Dale Vince. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because you suddenly get straight through. And that's what some of these people like to have, as they want access and they want to be able to talk to the Prime Minister or walk into Downing Street whenever they feel like it, And that's part of the process.
Maybe the answer, I mean, if you try and regulate who is the right donor and who is the wrong donor. Again, in the newspapers this morning, you'll see that the latest revelation is that the government wants to ban anybody that comes back from abroad to Britain, like Christopher Harbon, who's the crypto billionaire that sent the £5 million to Nigel before he was an MP, by the way. He has said that he's now going to come back to Britain. He's going to register as a voter so that he can donate here. The response from the Labour government is, right, okay, well, and this is like a kind of game of tag, this whole thing. Well, in that case, we'll ban anybody that comes back from another country from donating anything more than 100 grand. So you can't regulate this stuff, right? Because it becomes too messy. It becomes too patchy. So the only way, I suppose, and I'm not advocating this, but is to ban all donations. And then what do we end up with then? The state deciding how much money they give to a party in order to campaign. I mean, look, you need money. Or there's the other extreme in the US, which is that they have very, very lax rules and regs when it comes to donating, and that's why you end up with a presidency costing $1 billion, right?
Yes.
It costs $1 billion to get elected. I mean, I'm not quite sure which is the worst, having no funding for political parties or having no rules around funding.
Right.
I think I probably prefer the latter, actually.
Yeah, I think so, because as long as you have somebody making rules, then that person is always going to be called into question, because, who, for example, would decide whether Reform have got enough of a following to get the same amount of backing financially as the Tories or the Labour government, or you know what I mean? They'd all start breaking it all up into different bits. But it's interesting you say that they can't stop, or they're trying to stop people from coming to this country and taking part in the electoral process. What about the people coming in from places overseas, which is illegally. There's a big piece in the Sun today of an Albanian drug gang basically flogging tickets to people to come here, not on dinghies, but on super yachts, right? The 15,000 quid, they'll bring you in, and they won't bring you to Dover, they'll take you to some other secret place. But it's quite an extraordinary story. And they've been advertising literally on TikTok. Forget small boats, gangsters are smuggling illegal immigrants into,
so
just
it's
incredible.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but again, it points to, I suppose, the farcical nature of border force that effectively.
This is kind of, this is like premium economy and stroke business class for migrants.
Yeah, it's migrants kind of sunning themselves on the deck of a Sunseeker with a cocktail in their hand.
Yeah, right.
And Care for Calais and Border Fast, of course, will still be there with their silver blankets, a pizza, and the keys to a hotel room.
Yeah. It's worse than that as well. There's another story today, I don't know if you've seen this one in the Times, where they've done an investigation into these visas which are issued, legally, for example, to care workers and others, right? Migrant workers are still bringing in family members at a ratio as high as 15 to 1 for every worker, despite new restrictions. 12 health and care visas were issued to workers from Cameroon last year. But guess how many people came in? 180. So 12 of them are working and the rest have all come in as family members, right? Absolutely extraordinary.
Well, this was supposed to be stopped. Do you remember, I think it was during the Conservative government's last year or so, they actually did pull the drawbridge up on student visas and the students bringing their entire family with them. So, they're coming over here to study law at Loughborough, for instance, and they bring with them their mother, their father, their 3 brothers, their 18 sisters and 45 cousins. I might be exaggerating slightly, but that was the point.
Not really, you're actually not.
Is about that right. So they stopped that, but they forgot the work visa element, which is now, you come over here to work in a cafe in Aylesbury, and you can bring literally your second and third cousins. I mean, coach loads of people from Pakistan and Syria, just because they're distantly related. And of course, as we know in the Muslim world, everybody's a cousin.
Yeah, well, how about this, right? 257 health and care worker visas issued to Ghanaians in the same period, and that was a grand total of 2,131 visas issued to family members. So that's almost 10 to 1, the ratio there. And then here, you'll like this one, in applicants from India, more than 2,395 work visas were given, and they were joined by 10,504 other people.
So how are these people supported, right? So if you come over here on a work visa, even if you come over here as a junior doctor, right, let's be optimistic, and you're on 80k or 100k now, because obviously their salary goes up by 20 grand every year because they go on strike otherwise. But you bring with you 19 members of your immediate family. Are we supposed to believe that junior doctor on 80k is funding the food and accommodation and lifestyle of 19 people? I mean, on the basis that they're not supposed to get benefits, how does the government do the maths? How do they think that those people are surviving here? Well, I can tell you, they're probably all working as Deliveroo riders illegally. They're probably working in cafes and, working on building sites in the grey market, the black market. So, I mean, I don't know if we're naive as an establishment or just really thick.
Well, I think there's 2 things going on here. There's one sort of set of people who have the principle that everybody should be able to come here no matter what, and it'd be especially nice if we could bring more people, because obviously we are a sanctuary country and we should be giving us calm and succour to these people, right? But here's a good stat for you. The Home Office barred care workers from bringing family members in March 2024 unless they had a degree level job. However, those who are already here can still bring dependents to the UK. So if you're already here before March 24, you can continue to bring family members here even now.
I know. And then by contrast, so you can bring in who you want. If you come over on a boat, you get greeted with welcome, open arms. But we've still got a passport control when you come back from Tenerife that makes you stand in a queue for 3.5 hours, both ways.
Yeah, absolutely right. It's extraordinary, extraordinary. Let's just pop back to Nigel Farage for a minute, because we've got a clip of Nigel coming back. He was in America with Donald Trump, and Trump yesterday put out a tweet on on Truth Social saying they're running the 2024 anti-Trump playbook on Nigel Farage. I mean, that's the words of the American president. And Nigel yesterday was pretty angry with Sky News. Check this out.
Was it a mistake not to declare the gifts from George Cottrell, sir?
You tell your bosses you harass my family anymore. and I'll take you to serious consequences. That's what your organisation has done this morning. Go away.
Nigel Farage's reaction to questions about the financial support he received from a convicted criminal.
Was it a mistake not to declare the gift, sir?
Did you not hear me? You have broken all the rules, Leveson and everything else. Cut.
Sky News has not contacted Mr Farage's family over the story.
Yeah,
Okay, hang on. Hold that thought, right? So Sky News being very, very economical with the truth there. Sky News has not contacted Nigel Farage's family. Doesn't say they didn't try and knock the door down of his daughter's house.
Right.
It seems to me, as is being alleged, that both the Times and Sky have hounded his family, particularly his daughter, who is not in politics, has absolutely nothing to do with this issue whatsoever. But now people are railing against Nigel, saying, oh, look, he's losing his cool. Do you know what? If anyone comes and hounds any one of my daughters, I think I would react even more aggressively than Nigel Farage did there.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. And there's clearly something that Sky have done that has upset him. And I mean, why would he say that they've done that if they haven't done it? I've worked in the media for many, many years, and more than likely they have done it. But as you say, they've been economical with the truth and pretended that they haven't done it. But isn't it interesting how the wording gets used as well? Because whenever they introduce Louise Haigh, who is the new sort of, right-hand woman, if you like, to Andy Burnham, they don't call her a convicted criminal. Even though she is a convicted fraudster, but they do refer to George Cottrell as a convicted criminal. And to be perfectly honest, there's not much difference between what she did and what he did.
Well, exactly right. Louise Haigh is now seen as the kind of Messiah's Messiah. She's by Andy Burnham's side all the time. She was his campaign manager. And of course, in return for that, she'll get a plum job in Andy Burnham's cabinet, despite the fact that she had to resign in disgrace in 2024. I mean, literally minutes after the Labour government were formed, because of the revelations that she misreported her phone stolen. Read into that what you will, but effectively it was fraud. But the other, of course,
she not only misreported her phone being stolen, she misreported her phone being stolen on the phone that she said was being stolen.
Well, and yes, and also then didn't tell them that she'd actually found it again. Oh, right, okay. But can we also talk about, I've lost count now, but I think over the last few years, there have been some 7 Labour members of Parliament convicted and have gone to prison. Right? So to be clear, convicted in a court of criminality, and some of them have then gone to prison. Everyone seems to have forgotten about that. The Labour Party now wants to stand up on this pedestal and look down morally at everybody else, including Nigel Farage, who, by the way, let me remind you of 2 things. First of all, these gifts, these donations, whatever, were all given to Nigel a year or so before he was an MP, before he even decided he wanted to be an MP. Bearing in mind, Nigel was actually being touted as being part of the Trump administration. Do you remember that?
Yes.
So going way back, he was wrestling with, look, do I go to the US and support my friend Donald Trump? And he was pulled back into being MP. So there is absolutely no truth in the allegation that this money relates to him being persuaded to come back to be a member of Parliament. Those donations had already been made. It's very, very clear that he hadn't made his mind up. But yet when it comes to anybody else, whether it's the David Brown Liberal Democrats, whether it's the Cayman Islands donation to the Labour Party, the Dale Vince stuff, the donors, of course, that have donated to the Labour Party and then have ended up with plum government contracts. Apparently that's all okay, but Nigel Farage, who has not been proven to have done anything wrong, he has not yet been proven, if at all, and I'm sure he won't be, proven to have broken any rules, he gets hauled over the coals. When it's Starmer and Reeves, the Standards Commissioner doesn't even investigate them. He says, no, there's nothing to see here. Soon as it's Nigel Farage, it's a pile-on.
Yeah. I know. It's been quite shameful, actually, to watch. It's been really quite pathetic.
Mike, sorry, can I just one more thing? Sorry, mate.
Yeah.
Let's extend this, right? There's now people saying, well, if Nigel Farage has got a case to answer here, and there's a recall in Clacton, there's been some stuff in the papers over the last 24 hours about this. Do you know what will happen? Nigel will fight that by-election. He'll end up winning it with an increased majority, and literally will be buoyed by the fact that this witch hunt will have backfired on the establishment and made Nigel and Reform even stronger.
Yeah. And that is a big risk that they're taking on. But they're trying everything. I mean, they're throwing everything with the kitchen sink at him, and there's almost, you can see a pattern. You can see, as they move from one bit to the next, it starts off with Harborne, then it moves on to, some houses, then it moves on to George Cottrell. Next they're going to tell me he's got a couple of Range Rovers and, occasional use of a private jet. People don't care, I think,
Well, did you see what Dominic Cummings said? Dominic Cummings said in The Spectator yesterday that they will break the law, the establishment will break the law in order to try and bring Nigel down because he's such a threat to their cosy existence. Medical records, children's medical records. I mean, they will go for absolutely everything. But again, I think it will backfire. It backfired against when they tried to do the same to Boris, albeit they did eventually get him, but that was more about Boris's incompetence. But the other person that was buoyed by this constant campaign was President Trump. They really went for him in terms of, almost taking, well, they did take him through the civil courts, didn't they? And it made him stronger. That's what's going to happen here.
Well, Trump at one point, I think, had 4 or 5 different prosecutions going against him. And people from the left kept saying, he's not going to survive this one. Oh, look, there's one in Georgia. He's definitely going to get done there. Oh, the one in New York's definitely going to get done there. And then they tried to call him a criminal because I think he lost the one in New York, but it was a minor kind of, failure to file some papers to a tax office. It's just nonsense. Let me finish up with the Times front page splash, because interestingly, they've moved off Farage on the front page, and I wonder whether they've realised that actually all of their nastiness is already having the opposite effect. No need to seek work for 100,000 people with ADHD. Cases up 40% since Labour came to power in 2024. So the Tories kind of created the problem, but the Labour government have made it a hell of a lot worse.
Yeah, no, they have. And I can tell you at council level, this is a massive, massive problem. You've got now, there are children in particular with genuine SEND needs that need to be supported, right? Let me just make that really, really clear. But then you've got the grift. And the grift is that you've got 2 things happening, in my opinion. You've got the fact that obviously once there's a diagnosis, you can get a taxi to school for your kids, even if you've got a Range Rover on the drive, right? That's a fact. Also, I think there's a tendency now, I think, for parents with children that perhaps are badly behaved. God, this is going to get me into trouble. There's a tendency now for children of parents, so parents of children who are badly behaved, looking for a diagnosis because it then becomes a label. Because if you can say, my child has been diagnosed with ADHD, when perhaps they don't have it or they're borderline, it gets you off the hook as a bad parent. Now, that's just my view. In some, be clear, some cases. The other thing, of course, it does, Mike, it opens up the benefits treasure trove. So the benefits that then you as a parent or an individual that's diagnosed with this thing can get, are significant, including, disability benefit, maybe even a free BMW from the lovely people at Motability, and so on. So this is a grift. This is a grift. It's impossible to countenance that there is this many of genuine ADHD sufferers. It is being gamed. The system is being gamed, and it's costing the taxpayer billions of pounds. It's got to stop.
It is. It's incredible. I mean, most of the surge is down to young claimants, according to this piece, between the ages of 16 and 24. Nearly 2/3 of young people cite ADHD, autism, depression or anxiety as their main disability, up from almost half in 2020. And there's no requirement for them to seek work at all. And I think, everybody sensible from psychiatrists to doctors to other, healthcare professionals will tell anyone that if you're suffering from depression or you're suffering from anxiety, the best thing you can do is get a job.
Yeah, I know. No, jobs? No, that will never catch on. I don't think we do jobs anymore in this country, do we?
Well, we haven't got many. I mean, that's for sure, because, as much as...
lost 300,000 of them.
Yeah, Labour's, when nobody knows what's happened to those jobs. The only jobs you can get is working in North for Andy Burnham's new number 10 North office, if you want. How about this from Anne, who says, I used to assess people stating they had ADHD, and I can say they were not happy when told they didn't have it.
Yeah, but I bet that didn't happen very often. I bet there's not
No.
many people either on the benefits side assessing people, because normally what happens, they go to the doctor and they say, "Oh, I think I've got ADHD." 99 times out of 100, the doctor will say, "Oh, yeah, whatever, sure," and then they take the certificate along to the benefits office, and that opens up the treasure trove. Right?
Yeah.
That's the grift that has to stop. It starts with the doctors, assuming they're not on strike, because in the papers today, apparently NHS consultants, guess
Yes.
what? Those that earn over £150,000 a year, some of them, are also going to now go on strike for because they're disputing pay and pensions, apparently.
And they want another 50 grand a year. They'll probably get it as well because Bernard will give it to them because he'll want their votes. And yeah, so this, if you are on ADHD benefits, you get an extra £194 a week on top of all the other benefits that you get. It's going to get to the point now, Russell, when it's not worth actually going to work.
Well, that's the thing, and we are now in a position. Of course, we've overtaken the maths that says that obviously that income tax should fund the exchequer. Income tax doesn't now even fund the welfare bill. So less money comes in income tax into the treasury than we pay out in benefits, because the benefits bill, albeit including state pension, is nearly 300 billion. The entire budget of this country is only $1 trillion. So a third of all the money that this country, this government administers, is going to people that are economically inactive or less active than they should be, because they are having to have their salaries topped up by benefits. Benefits were introduced as a temporary help and for people that genuinely could not work, right? We've ended up in a situation now fueled by Labour backbenchers that, of course, don't want the aggro of having to wind back or cancel benefits. We're in a situation now where almost everybody, I mean, there's 22 million people on benefits in Britain, on universal credit. 22 million. We're a population of 70 million people. 22 million are on benefits. That's absolutely insane.
I know.
I mean, no one's got the political guts to do anything about it. Now, I think reform will. The Conservatives say they will, but of course had 14 years to wind this back and didn't. As for Andy Burnham thinking that he's going to tackle it, well, he won't, will he? He'll increase those benefits and he'll spend more money by way of borrowing in order to do so. I mean, it's completely unsustainable. Anyone that can add up, can count to 10, can see that this is completely unsustainable.
Yeah, totally right. And of course, many of the people who are depressed in Britain are depressed because of the 14 years of Tory government, because they had to live through it. And it was an absolute nightmare. But there we are. Russell, good to see you. Have a lovely day. Thank you very much indeed. One from Wade, who says, my cousin has not worked in years as he has anxiety and depression. He has a brand new hybrid car, council house, and his wife is his care aide. I have PTSD and I'm a veteran and run 2 businesses. Yeah, I've got another one here from somebody on the YouTube chat saying, my daughter's got ADHD. She works all the time because she's hyperactive. And that's part of the thing, isn't it? Look, obviously not one size fits all. You're not going to say that everybody who's claiming disability benefit for ADHD is on the take or is faking it. But quite a lot of them are, it seems to me. Anyway, listen, coming up, we've got loads more for you. Dan Wootton's going to join us to talk about the terrible state of YouTube right now and this government trying to clamp down on freedom of speech. If they don't like what you're saying, they're going to try and stop you saying it. They're going to try and work an algorithm onto the YouTube independent media companies like our own to try and make us stop being seen by people, stop being found by people, and stop being discovered by people. I wonder why they would want to do that. This is, of course, the Mike Graham Show. Got any more super chats you want to show me before we go? Lee Nalalingham's coming up in a minute as well. I've got a couple of good stories to get him stuck into. Might get Pooch to search up the fact that Starmer shares the name of the English king, 1016 to 1035. Well, an anagram of it anyway. I have a look and see what you can find. Stable Fairy says, I was at a hustings where the Green Party member advocated for universal basic income and the whole audience cheered. Wow. Oh, I know. It's pathetic, isn't it? One from MLB Peace Planet. Thank you very much indeed. Keep those super chats coming. It's all very much welcome. And do please like and subscribe to the channel. We've just hit 168,000 subscribers today. So the more the merrier. Welcome to all of you who have subscribed. It doesn't cost you any money at all, but it does help us. My wife works in the student industry. For ages, it was Chinese students on a boat, but not for visas. The African students followed. I've witnessed a setup a couple of years ago. Well, I've got a story for you today, which is going to absolutely burn your bridges for you. A fury happened in 2022 when it was revealed that the Home Office had paid a private company £2.5 million to charter boats and crews to pick up people trying to cross the channel. It now appears that Shabana Mahmood is 4 years later paying £30 million to the same company, usually serving the offshore wind industry, for a 1-year contract extendable to 3 years to continue to pick up people in the channel. Absolutely unbloody believable, isn't it? Incredible. It's 7:40. We're running slightly late already. Let us get some news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes. Prince Harry kicks off his charity visit amid fresh palace drama. The Buckingham Palace stay offer was withdrawn at the last minute after he supposedly accepted it. Family harmony at its finest. England's epic World Cup win over Mexico is still buzzing, though poor Jordan Henderson might need wrist surgery from all that celebrating. We're deep in the third heat wave with scorching 30-plus degrees Celsius days, melting the nation, while fighter jets intercept Russian planes near our carriers because apparently Monday wasn't exciting enough. Starmer's government soldiers on with defence rows and welfare headaches. Classic Britain, football highs, royal lows, and sweat-soaked chaos. Laters, tigers.
Edward Hughes there with the news. Thank you very much indeed. Mike, sending you love, says Cindy. My son has ADHD, says Kiki. At 16, he refused to apply for PIP. Well, good for him. You don't need to actually apply for benefits, but the trouble is the benefit system is now so ridiculously easy to access that more and more people are just applying for it because it makes sense to them. Why bother going to work if you can get paid not to work? I mean, I wouldn't fancy that. And I'm sure my next guest wouldn't fancy either. Lee Nalalingham. Lee, good to see you.
Morning, Mike. Good to see you.
How are things?
How are things? Hot.
It is getting hot,
The tube is warm.
Yeah, it was a bit warm yesterday, I have to say. Yeah, I had to spend some time in central London. But luckily, my flat so far, last heat wave, it didn't get really hot till Thursday. So I'm hoping I've got another couple of days of reasonable sleep.
Lucky you.
I know.
I've got this lovely view of the dock outside of my window. You've got kind of Canary Wharf Sailing Club just on the other side of the water. Right. The only downside is it just fills up with sunlight for the entire afternoon, and my place turns into a bloody
That's
sauna.
My problem as well. South facing, sun beats down on it, all that. Anyway, listen, we've got loads to talk about, including this story that popped up yesterday late afternoon. This migrant picker, I don't know who's seen it. It's a story that actually broke by Guido Fawkes. But apparently, Shabana Mahmood's Home Office is now paying £30 million for a year's contract to a company that would normally be serving the offshore wind industry to help pick up people crossing the channel. Contract documents show that Border Force wants 7 vessels total from Aeolian Offshore, 5 migrant rescue vessels to rescue and transport migrants recovered from the channel, and 2 recovery vessels to lift and seize the boats.
Just fantastic.
You kind of go, what?
Well,
30 million quid.
We've got to make sure we take care of them, Mike. How can they get to their free house if that we leave them alone in the water? We've got to make sure that they have as many boats available as possible. So I have to admire the ingenuity of it, though. I would have never thought, who might have some spare boats to help us?
Yeah.
The offshore wind companies.
Yeah, the offshore wind companies. Why? Because, of course, we've got nothing for them to do.
Net zero, yes.
We've got nothing for them to do.
Not enough wind.
Right, and presumably we're also subsidising.
Or too much wind.
There's probably a double whammy here, because we're probably subsidising the company in the first place to be an offshore wind company, and now we're paying them an extra amount of money to pick up migrants, which is not actually in the original contract to provide us with offshore wind.
Yeah.
Right, isn't it?
Yeah, I can imagine Mad Ed Miliband sat there going, what might be a way to bring down our energy bills? If we bung them some money another way, well, technically they might knock that off the bill. We're still giving them the money.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
We're run by clowns.
It is incredible, isn't it? I mean, you'll be interested in this ADHD story as well, I imagine, because of the amounts of money involved.
Just the amounts of money involved, and it is... I think it is, I've said before, up to £81 billion every year is lost to fraud and error. And a substantial amount of that actually comes from the benefits. Like when I've got a school near my place. When I did the tours recently, this time last year, to find out where my daughter would go. Yeah. I went into one of them, and they started by introducing to me, hey, you realise, if you need help with benefits or whatever, let us know. Right. And we can make sure that there are diagnoses, because then you get, extra benefits and we get funding.
Wow.
And when I explained that, unfortunately I wouldn't qualify for any benefits, they've quickly backtracked and realised what they'd said.
Yes.
But it is the
It's
whole
an industry,
thing is a
isn't it?
scam.
But the whole thing is an industry. I mean, we're looking as well. I mean, there's a lot of stories. They're all sort of along a similar vein, all of which end up with the answer to the question, well, we're wasting a lot more money.
We are wasting a lot of money.
This story here in the Times about relatives of migrant workers coming in. So these are people coming into the country legally, but the numbers are baffling, because what they're saying is that up to 15 relatives are now entering the UK for every single migrant worker that comes in. And this goes back to, do you remember the story I told about the NHS? Because I was told this by a Border Force operative who was willing to talk to me about 3 nurses, and forgive me if you've heard this story before, 3 nurses coming in from Nigeria to work in the NHS. They arrived at Heathrow, they had all the right papers, they had their 3 work visas, and they were very happy to come and work in Britain and help us out with the NHS. They each had a husband and 5 kids. So 21 people came in for 3 jobs in the NHS.
Yep.
And that's about the ratio we're talking about.
And again, it's there's nothing wrong with, look, if the best nurse in the world happens to be Nigerian and we want to give her a visa, fine, I have no issues with that. There's got to be some sort of common sense financial test.
There has to be.
Right? It should be something like, to be a net taxpayer, you have to earn, I think it's like £40,000 a year.
Right.
And then for every kid, it's an extra 10 grand on top or something. So if you want to bring 5 kids, no problem, but you must be able to sustain yourself. Therefore, you must have at least £90,000 a year in income. It's really not.
And you're not going to make that as a nurse, are you?
You're not, unfortunately. I mean, some people could argue that.
So I guess, so then you have to get into the question of, right, well, is it then right to bring these people in if they're actually going to end up being a net cost to the economy?
Exactly that. And especially when you combine with nurses, for example, if you are a British nurse, you essentially have to do 40 hours a week free as part of your training. You only get paid for, I think it's your 41st hour.
Right.
So someone online will probably collect me and say it's 35, but whatever it is, you have to do, you do it for free. And that's one of the reasons we don't have enough British nurses. Is because you've essentially got to be able to work for free your first 40 hours for a year to qualify.
Well, we're all in the same boat in that one, aren't we? Because I remember they used to do this in America in a big way when I worked there, but they do it here to a slightly lesser extent. But you're basically working now until at least May and possibly some part of June before you actually start making any money of your own. Because the previous 6 months has all gone to the government,
all for the tax,
which is terribly discouraging. And no wonder, and I say this, and I wouldn't fancy not working, and I wouldn't fancy having my children, applying for benefits and not working. But you can see why people do.
You do.
Because if you can't make a decent wage, what's the point of working?
And that's exactly it. And it is to the point that you can actually earn more by not working, depending on your salary bracket, right? So, unfortunately, I don't have that luxury. But for a lot of people, it is an avid lifestyle choice. And, there'd be some clown on the internet going, oh, well, it's lucky to say that from a place of privilege. Look, my mum was a single mother on benefits. I'm not trying to hate on anyone on benefits, but it's to the point now there is no incentive, right? If you could sit there and not have to do it, why would you? Unless you are going to disproportionately out earn. If it's borderline, my stepmother is a tax accountant.
Yes.
And she was talking over Sunday lunch, not the weekend before, and she's now discovered that there's people in Asda that are getting paid more than her with the minimum wage changes and so on and what they're offering. And she sat there like, hold on a minute, she only works for a small firm, but I'm literally a tax accountant. I might as well go and work in Asda. And it's the same thing. And then there'll be people who are working in Asda who sit down and actually run the numbers and go, actually, and it's prevalent. You get what you incentivize. All of the policies were extremely well-meaning, right? Whether it was prioritising certain groups, whatever it may be, everything very well.
Yeah, well, helping people out is a civilised way of running a country. There's nothing wrong with that.
But what they don't factor in is you incentivise.
But it's meant to be a safety net, as
exactly
I've said many
that.
times. It's not meant to be a lifestyle choice for the rest of your time on Earth.
Exactly. And then I saw this whole thing about they keep on bringing up universal basic income. The same thing will happen. Well, if you're going to earn, I don't know, $2,000 a month or $3,000 a month or whatever they end up pulling it as,
Right.
well, then why would you go to the office?
Yeah. Right. And also, why would you start a business? Because that's the other thing, which is really strangling, the entrepreneurial spirit of this country, is that this government is weighing you down with red tape. They're weighing you down with costs. They're weighing you down with national insurance. They're weighing you down with all manner of, dividend fees and all the rest of it.
Yep.
So there's not, if you're thinking of running a small business, there's not much incentive to do it.
There isn't. And then you've got a very small percentage of the population that are extremely driven, that'll do it anyway, but why would you?
Now, this is a good one for you. This is another one for the Wasted Money Brigade, right? Yeah. There's a place called Matford Brook Academy. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Never heard of Matford Brook.
It's a school built in 2021 at the centre of a 2,500 home development south of Exeter. But unfortunately, it's never actually opened, right? Because there were severe structural defects, including unstable foundations, missing bolts. The main building was deemed unsafe last year. In 2023, the first intake in 2023 was forced to attend a nearby school in temporary modular classrooms, i.e. porta cabins, right? And guess what they're going to do now? £31 million later, they're going to knock it down.
Of course they are. Of course they are.
What is going on with that? I mean, it's Exeter. The Department for Education concluded that the building was too deeply flawed to meet compliance standards and that demolition is the only viable option.
The only viable option, and I've got to be honest, the more I look at this, when I started looking at this 18 months ago, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I started sharing it.
Yeah.
It's hard to come to the conclusion now it's all accidental. It's one big scam. You can't be that
imagine all the people that have made a
incompetent.
fortune out of building a school like this. £31 million spent.
Right.
So that's gone somewhere.
It's gone somewhere, and it's gone to, various government contracts, who've gone to subcontracts, who've gone to whatever. I tell you, if I ever end up in government, a lot of people are going to jail.
Yes. Well, they really should.
That'll literally be my campaign pledge. I'm going to send them all to jail. It's...
I mean, look at this. Temporary buildings, including 8 classrooms, a library and a meeting room, was set up on the grounds in 2024. Eventually, a 2-storey interim building was constructed on another part of the same plot and later expanded. Pupils will have lessons in temporary buildings until at least 2028.
Yeah, again, it's just...
And that is so disruptive.
It's so disruptive. I mean, it screws over the kids, it screws over the taxpayers. But someone's made a lot of money out of it. And where does this money go? The money constantly disappears. And this is not a one-off. You've got Richard Tice goes on about that £100 million bat shed they built.
Yes.
They have spent, is it something like £1 billion in Thurrock for that crossing?
Yeah.
And they haven't actually started building it yet. That's just discussing what they're going to build, £1 billion.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, there's no way any of it adds up.
The money they've spent on HS2 is prodigious, without considering the fact that they haven't got any railways yet, and they haven't got any trains yet.
No, but they've managed to get, was it up to 100 billion or whatever
100 billion they've spent just on planning what they're going to do.
Yep.
I don't get it.
No, do not get it at all. And again, it is completely impossible to spend that much money to do the actual thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with the Parliament, right? Like they want to renovate Parliament.
We keep hearing that. I've been hearing that for years now.
Right, but they've actually costed it now. I read something, and it was either the National Audit Office or the IFS. They've costed it. And they're saying it's going to cost up to £50 billion to renovate the building and take 20 years.
Yeah.
It's like, it's really not.
But I mean, in your estimation, as a man who looks at figures and knows about, accounting for monies that are spent, how do they come up with these figures? Because I always say, whenever they say things like 50 billion, you go, well, how did you arrive at that number?
So the way they come up with it is they cost it on a project basis. Right. So essentially they will look at things like man-day rates and give you a really simple idea of what happens in the private sector. For example, if you've got a technology department, they may pay your project manager in the company 40 grand, 50 grand, something like that, but they will cost his time or her time at say 1,000 a day. Right. And that's how they come up with it, because they work on the basis that if something goes wrong, they can hire in a contractor or a consultant or whatever. And so they'll work on that basis and they'll extrapolate it out over a man-day estimate. And so what they're essentially doing is looking at this, and they are, you know where you see, for example, you end up with those firms, you end up with 25 people doing a job, and 24 of them are sat around watching the other bloke work.
I watched the police doing that the other week.
It's exactly that, and it's all based off of these things called man-day estimates, which is how they come up with these quotes and these numbers. And it allows them to have a fully staffed team and so on. The reality is you could do it with 2 blokes. I mean, I see stuff just in, my day job and what I've done. I mean, I've run like global transformation programs covering 70-something countries and done it with a team of 5.
Right.
And then I will see others outsource to a third party, and they've got a team of like 200 doing a fraction of what we did. But they're spending lots of time like writing reports and things like that.
Yeah.
And that's where it comes from.
That's the civil service sort of
exactly that.
background of all this
It's all of that bureaucracy in the in the the DWP or whatever that are actually doing the work. If you actually stripped out most of them, you could run. I mean, if you look at most large corporates, you go into any FTSE listed company, and you can take out 30 to 50% of headcount and not impact frontline services if you get the operating model right by stripping out all of the all the middle managers who just sat there, kind of someone at the top decides, someone at the bottom's doing the work, and they sit there having meetings about how long it's going to take. Take those people out, 30 to 50% of headcount can disappear. If you look at the public sector, 50 to 70% comfortably in terms of that. I mean, most of our public sector now are not even delivering the services themselves. They're just managing third parties who've got an SLA who are delivering the service. It's saving an inordinate amount of money.
It is extraordinary. Lee, you've got to run because we've got lots to talk about this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Good to see you.
Lee Nalalingham there. Tell people where they can find all your interesting investigations into public spending.
Yes, all over social media. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I do a Substack where I drop various government stats. So I think the last thing I published a week ago was on the government failing audit for the 3rd year in a row.
Tremendous work.
No one knows where the money is, but they know they need more tax.
Oh, of course, absolutely right. Lee, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Lee Nalalingham. We're going to be talking to Dan Wootton coming up in the next hour, but coming up right now, we're going to talk to the Free Speech Union because there's a big story brewing in the independent media sector, of which we are, of course, a very important part. And I'm going to speak to Connie Shaw now, who's here from the Free Speech Union. Connie, very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Morning, Mike.
Good to see you. This is very, very concerning, isn't it? I'm just looking at the YouTube message that we all got in the last few days. Basically, the UK government is running a public consultation called Watch This Space, a new strategic direction for UK media. What they basically want to do, as far as I can see it, is direct people in particular directions and what they call responsible media companies, which would suggest that they want you to watch the BBC and Sky and ITV and not watch the Mike Graham Show.
Yes, exactly. So this green paper, which means a paper that is a draft of a government proposal on consultation on what they may want to create to be the law, has been released, that suggests that they would want social media companies to be legally obliged to promote the prominence of so-called trusted news sources, and basically news sources which they refer to as ones that are less likely to promote divisive narratives. That phrase, divisive narratives, is littered throughout the Green Paper. When Andy Burnham won the by-election in Makerfield, in his victory speech the next day, he said the best thing we can say about last night is that basically he and Labour avoided Britain going down another path towards more darkness and division. He was referring, I mean, I don't think it's, we can't doubt that he was referring to people who voted for Restore Britain and for Reform UK. And this idea about darkness and division, divisive narratives, politics that's dividing people. We hear Labour politicians, mainstream politicians say this all the time. It's as though they think we don't know what they're referring to when they say these things. It's very clear what they're referring to is people who talk about their concerns about immigration, multicultural Britain. Many of these concerns, people would not know about the reality of Britain to have those concerns. Would it not be a large part down to social media platforms like X, which allow people to discuss and freely upload things that they see happen in real life? For example, it would be very unlikely if it wasn't for an independent content creator that we would know that on Saturday just gone, a man in Leeds was arrested after he insulted Islam, and we saw him being thrown into the back of a police van after doing so. Had it not been from an independent creator filming that and uploading it, we probably wouldn't know about it. We probably wouldn't be able to have seen the horrific footage of the alleged attempted beheading in Belfast a couple of weeks ago had it not been for a member of the public filming and uploading it. And it seems, from what the government has very brazenly, they're being very brazen about this, suggesting that they would want to promote trusted news sources and suppress the variety of independent commentators that are now on the internet and able to speak freely. So yes, you're absolutely right that essentially the government will be able to decide whether you are regarded as a trusted news source or someone who is untrusted and potentially promoting divisive narratives, i.e. allowing the public to see the reality of what's going on in Britain. When they say divisive narratives, they mean they do not want people to see what is actually going on, which is why politicians urged people not to reshare the footage of the incident in Belfast. You know, freedom of speech isn't just about the right to speak freely, it's also about the right to receive information so that you are able to know what it is that you want to talk about in the first place. And it seems that the government is very keen to crack down on that. We know that Labour politicians are very unkeen on X because they don't like the fact that the public are very angry, and the things that the public are angry about are things that Labour do not want to talk about and do not want to address because it shatters their religion, I would say, of multiculturalism.
And presumably this would also extend to individual publications, if you like for example, like your Twitter account, my Twitter account, Nigel Farage's Twitter account, perhaps. They're talking about having a mandatory prominence regime, which could require digital platforms like YouTube to prioritise and give a privileged position to traditional broadcasters. I mean, what do you know, or what can you tell us about the legal position from YouTube's perspective in terms of whether they're, as an American company, they have to be somehow, policed by a foreign government?
Well, exactly, and these are all implications that the government are going to try and have to work their way around. We know that, when it came to the Online Safety Act, because of the threats that basically if you don't go along with the Online Safety Act, you could be fined up to £18 billion or 10% of your annual revenue, that even though, social media companies, X did sort of go along with the Online Safety Act, but the pressure of that means that they end up censoring more just in case. It's still unclear how, whether our laws can actually dictate what foreign media companies do. And also the way that YouTube have responded to this, the messaging that you've received and that many other YouTube creators have received suggests that YouTube is very apprehensive about these proposals and not keen on it. It's not necessarily that YouTube has been a massive proponent of freedom of speech in the past, but it does raise serious questions about whether the government really understands how algorithms work, how social media companies make their money. It's about what people want to watch and the revenue that is made off of that. And like you say about regulating social media in terms of being balanced and fair, this is another thing that Lucy Powell suggested the other day, that she wants to see social media have enforced similar rules that currently broadcast media has during elections. So the period of purdah, where if you talk about the upcoming election, you have to name every single party running, every single candidate running in a certain area if you're talking about a specific area. How on earth is that going to be regulated? Does it mean that every single person who posts in relation to the general election will be required to make sure that each tweet, for example, is a balanced and fair comment where you name every single candidate if you're talking about a specific constituency?
Yeah.
I mean, how on earth they think they're going to enforce this is just very bizarre. So yeah, it's yet to see. I mean, obviously this is just a government green paper, but it very clearly shows the intentions and what the desires are of these people that we have. And also Lucy Powell is a very close ally of Andy Burnham. She may well be our next deputy prime minister. She's the deputy leader of the Labour Party. She's called ex-toxic, even though she's the same person who also said that the rape gangs was a dog whistle.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't for X, we probably wouldn't know, the public wouldn't know nearly as much as we do now about the rape gangs if it wasn't X. She's called ex-toxic. Lisa Nandy, who's vacated X, said that it wasn't healthy for our democracy, rather than, I would say, healthy in the sense that people are now able to participate more so in democracy because of X. And they're being so brazen about it. They think that we can't see what they're doing, and they are seriously expecting the public to just go along with it.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
I think we're
extraordinary.
being taken for mugs.
It's amazing. I've got a little clip actually of Lucy Powell. I think Charlotte, can we have that?
We saw Lisa Nandy say this week on X that she's going to come off X this week because she thinks it's become a far-right misinformation network under Elon Musk. I know you've got some proposals and ideas about how social media needs to change as well, but just on that, on X, do you think there's a government, do you think that there is a case that the wider government should do the same and withdraw?
Well, look, they're decisions for Lisa and her department, and I think, look, these are trade-offs, aren't they? You know, it's a place that people do go to hear about what you're doing or to get news. So, do you want to remain on that platform? But it is also, you know, a platform that increasingly I find to be quite a toxic and difficult environment. But look, more importantly, we absolutely need to strengthen regulation in the social media space. I've got some proposals for doing that, especially when it comes to election time, where as a broadcaster, Lewis, how much you are restricted and regulated during election periods, who you can have on your show, how you have to be impartial, how you have to share information and facts about different people standing for election and so on. And now the social media space, which is where most people get their news and information and are influenced from, is out with that completely. And I think it's in that bill so that social media comes under some of the same requirements during an election period as our broadcasters do.
I mean, I love the fact that, she uses words like impartiality and, fairness. This is possibly one of the most, terrible governments we've ever had. The idea that they would know anything about impartiality is extraordinary to me.
I think that, just listening to Lucy Powell there, how does she not feel some kind of shame, the fact that she is saying out loud that she wants to restrict what the public can and cannot say during a huge democratic event, i.e. a general election.
Yeah.
I think that many broadcasters, I don't know how you feel about it, might find the Purdah rules already very restrictive. I don't know whether I agree with the fact that every time a certain constituency is announced, that every single candidate should be named.
It's nonsense.
It does restrict the conversation that we can have.
Yeah, well, it's nonsense. I mean, we were able to cover both the Denton and Gorton by-election, or Gorton and Denton even, and also Makerfield, because we're not regulated by Ofcom. And so we were able to get people into the studio here and actually talk to them. And the guests were like, this is brilliant. We everywhere else we go, we can't speak about it. It's only shows like myself and Dan Wootton, and Dan's coming on in a minute to talk to us about it. If you go on GB News, you go on Talk, you go on the BBC, ITV, they can't talk about the by-election, which is incredibly stupid, it seems to me, in this day and age. We're not living in, 1854.
Yeah, I think that it's really strange, this attitude from particularly this Labour government. I mean, it's been so authoritarian, and I think sometimes I think to myself, oh, maybe I'm overreacting to this. Maybe it's not really as bad as it seems. But this green paper and the things that Lucy Powell has been saying remind me that actually, no, I think I'm just as concerned as I should be. If not, I should be more concerned. But their reaction to these things is always, let's have less speech rather than more. Lisa Nandy, that sort of, X has become a right-wing cesspit. One of the reasons why it may seem like that to some people is because when Elon Musk took over, so many people left and went to Blue Sky because they don't like the fact that everyone is allowed to now say what they think, not just certain people who subscribe to a certain political doctrine. I mean, if those people had stayed on X and were able to deal with the fact that there were lots of people on there who had views that they don't really like, then perhaps it would be more a balanced place. And also, not everyone does have a right-wing cesspit algorithm. I don't think I do. It depends what you're looking at. I mean, I see many left-wing commentators on there because I make sure to follow them, people that I disagree with.
Sure.
I get things that come up on my feed that absolutely enrage me, but I know it's important that I'm seeing what the other side is saying.
Yeah.
And so if these politicians feel like their algorithms are showing them all of this awful stuff, well, firstly, it's appropriate that you do see and interact and have to consider views that you find very distasteful, so that you can learn how to argue against them, rather than thinking, I don't want to see that at all.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, many of these people that they think are spreading this divisive narrative are the people that they want to be voting for them.
I mean, to be honest,
it's in Andy. Go on.
Sorry, I was going to say, for a moment of levity, I mean, to be honest, most of the unsolicited content I get on my X feed is dogs doing funny things and jumping around in water and laughing.
Yeah.
You know, it's not exactly what you might call a toxic right-wing cesspit, you know?
No. I mean, I have to say my algorithm at the moment is bizarrely, politics and also loads of Love Island at the moment. So, because that's what I'm watching at the moment, which is also very political in some ways.
Right.
It's been very interesting to watch people being removed for so-called offensive comments and all the rest of it. But it's really interesting that on one hand, the Labour government surely want these people to be voting for them, but at the same time, you have Andy Burnham accusing the people who voted for right-wing parties as being people who are trying to lead Britain down a path of further darkness and division, but also we don't want to become a place like the United States where people can't talk to each other because of their political differences, and we're going to bring people together. Well, I'm sorry, Andy, we arrived in that place a long time ago. The very man who stepped down so that you could run, who now apparently you're going to be giving a job to, Josh Simons, had to leave government role because it was revealed that he commissioned a report when he was at Labour Together to essentially smear journalists who dared to criticise Labour Together and Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
So the Labour Party has done their bit to divide people. Thank you very much. So don't accuse people who vote for parties that are opposed to your politics as being the ones who are promoting division.
No, absolutely right. Connie, well, listen, it's only the beginning, so we're going to fight together, I'm sure, with lots of other people. And the one good thing we can say about this useless government is that they do an awful lot of U-turns. So we just have to force them into doing another one, I guess.
Yes,
Excellent
absolutely.
stuff.
And yes.
Good stuff. Connie Shaw from the Free Speech Union, thank you very much indeed for talking to us. What a ridiculous state of affairs that we have a government. So here's what's going on, right? So they don't like the fact that people don't watch the BBC anymore because they can control the BBC, and also the BBC is full of lefties. They don't like the fact that nobody's watching Sky anymore because the Sky is also full of lefties and they can control that as well. They don't like the fact that ITV has got a rapidly decreasing audience when it comes to news and current affairs, and so they don't like that either. They've noticed, bizarrely, they've actually been awake for the last couple of weeks. They've noticed that there's actually quite a large and growing independent sector, including shows like this, including shows like Dan Wootton, Maya Toosey, others who have been in the independent space for much longer than I have, but who have had a massive effect on the popularity of their own shows, right? As have we. So we're going to talk to Dan Wootton coming up very shortly about all of this. And of course, we will be taking a lot of your comments as well. Some great comments coming in on the free speech front, because this is a really important battle for us and a really important battle for the nation, I think, because the idea that the government are in some way empowered to tell us what we should be watching. No, thank you very much indeed. Have we got some time for news with Edward Hughes? Let's do it. Let's do it.
Morning, I'm Edward Hughes. Prince Harry kicks off his charity visit amid fresh palace drama. The Buckingham Palace stay offer was withdrawn at the last minute after he supposedly accepted it. Family harmony at its finest. England's epic World Cup win over Mexico is still buzzing, though poor Jordan Henderson might need wrist surgery from all that celebrating. We're deep in the third heat wave with scorching 30+ degrees Celsius days, melting the nation, while fighter jets intercept Russian planes near our carriers because apparently Monday wasn't exciting enough. Starmer's government soldiers on with defence rows and welfare headaches. Classic Britain, football highs, royal lows, and sweat-soaked chaos. Laters, tigers.
This video is sponsored by Tally Money. I'm delighted to be joined in the studio by CEO and founder Cameron Parry. Cameron, very good morning to you. Nice to see you. Tell us what Tally Money is.
Well, at Tally Money, you get a savings account powered by gold. So we give you a sort code and account number in your name, just like a normal bank account, but instead of sitting in pounds, you now have milligrams of gold that we brand as Tally.
Okay. And how does it actually work sort of day to day? Do you check the gold price every day? Do you need to do that? How does that?
We use the spot price, what's called the spot price in gold, and that updates every minute. It's a live price. We don't charge any premiums or FX margins on anything on that. You just go about your day as though it was any other mainstream foreign currency, except that you see all your transactions in real time and you're not getting charged international transaction fees and things like this.
Okay, so if I move some of my money into Tally, because I've just opened an account, what happens to it? And is it one of those things that I'll just be watching all day to go, ooh, look what's happening today?
You might do, but you've probably got better things to do with your time, to be honest, Mike. I don't actually think about the little movements in price, because I know over time that on average it goes up more than 12% per annum, and it has each year for the last 10 years. Bank savings products or current accounts just can't compete with that at all. But the main thing is my money's sitting there. It's my direct ownership of an asset. When I use my Italia card, in London to buy a cup of coffee, the merchant still gets pounds.
Yeah, okay. To find out more about Tally Money and for a special offer for viewers of the Mike Graham Show, simply scan the QR code or click the link in the description right here. So, the Mike Graham Show, 8:15. It's Thursday, the 7th. Tuesday, no, it's not. It's Tuesday, the 7th of July. What am I talking about? I'm wishing the week away. It's going to be a lovely week, by the way. It's going to be very hot. And it's getting hotter and hotter in the old independent sector of broadcasting, because I'm about to speak to the man who forayed his way through 2 years ago and did what I'm doing now 2 years later. Dan Wootton, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mike.
Now, congratulations, first of all. 500 episodes. 2 years, 500 million views. I mean, you're putting me to shame, Dan. I mean, if only I could get to that at some point in the next year, I'd be very happy.
You will be there, Mike. You will be there. But I think it is this growing success from you, from Outspoken, from shows like Trigonometry and 2C TV. And actually, Mike, too, this is not just what we might consider a left and right thing. It's also from shows like Novara Media, too, as much as we might find them unbearable,
right?
That the government are thinking are just too popular. And as a result, we have to find a way to save the legacy broadcasters. And, I've got my little names for them, Mike, the British Bashing Corporation, Woke ITV, Sly News and Channel 4.
Right. Well, exactly right. And I mean, isn't it funny that all of this is kind of happening at a time when all of their numbers are going in the opposite direction to ours? They're all going like that. Sky News, GB News is hovering bigger now than Sky News and the BBC News Channel. You probably do bigger numbers than the BBC News Channel. I certainly do as well. But, they've worked out, haven't they, these bozos from the Labour government, that nobody's listening anymore to that stuff.
Absolutely. And what's so chilling about what they're trying to do, Mike, is literally, and people need to understand this, the government wants to take control of your algorithm. Now, an algorithm, some people will be saying, what's that? Well, it's very personal to you. It's what you see on your feeds. And this doesn't just relate to YouTube. It relates to Facebook or TikTok or Instagram or X, where you receive content that is tailored specifically to what you like, to what you want to watch, to who you are interested in hearing from. And what's fascinating is that if you go on YouTube, Mike, and you take a look at the legacy broadcasters, I sometimes do it for fun because it will make you feel very good, Mike. About
I do it too.
Just have a look at, ITV on YouTube, one of their political or royal shows. It's watched by a handful of people because the only reason that anyone these days would choose to watch a show from Woke ITV or the British Fashion Corporation is if they have one of those positions that are granted by their legacy status. So, it's part of the law, Mike, that when you switch on your TV, the whole reason why BBC and ITV and Channel 4 are so high up the EPG, the Electronic Program Guide, that is a legal requirement because they are so-called public service broadcasters. That doesn't apply to YouTube. And so what they want to do is rather than you opening your YouTube feed and seeing the Mike Graham Show or seeing Dan Wootton Outspoken or Trigonometry or whoever you happen to love as a commentator, Russell Quirk, Connor Tomlinson, we know a whole load of them. They want to force feed you content that you don't want to watch. And they say it's because these legacy broadcasters are trusted. Well, I'm sorry, Mike. We lived through COVID together at Talk Radio. I think everyone can look back and think who did the better job broadcasting over that period. The BBC, who wanted us to lock down forever and jab your children, or us. So it's not that they are trusted. That's absolute poppycock. It's the fact that they are prepared to spurt the government narrative on a consistent and constant basis. And it's chilling. I was just listening to your interview with Connie. She's completely right about what Lucy Powell is trying to do. That's utterly nuts. They don't just want to shut down a conversation that we might want to have, Mike, about a by-election. They want to shut down a conversation that you want to have at home with your mates on Facebook or X. Now, this is never going to work because how far do they go? Do they start patrolling your WhatsApp account too? It's twisted. But I do believe, and this is not said with any sense of paranoia, Mike, I've been in this space for 2 years. We're becoming too successful. They want to shut us down. I do believe it is targeting the growth of right-wing independent media. Because let's just think about it for a second, Mike. There's no one in government who wants to shut down the fake news agents hosted by Lewis Goodall, Emily Maitlis and John Sokol. That's just an extension of the mainstream media. They're not challenging any narratives. No. They're not making life difficult for this government. So they want to shut you down. They want to shut me down. And that's why Maya Tusi, my good friend, who, as you rightly point out, was one of the sort of pioneers in this space.
Yeah.
We came from the mainstream media, having been cancelled, Mike. He is a digital native, and he has made the decision that in order to broadcast freely, he is going to have to take his whole operation. And he's very lucky, Mike, because he has a geopolitics show. It's not so focused on the UK anymore, but he is actually going to take his whole operation and broadcast out of Florida in the US, where you are truly protected because of the First Amendment. So we live in terrifying times, Mike. It's almost like, do you remember pirate radio?
Yeah.
Like when radio first started. I could honestly see a scenario, and I said this on my show yesterday. I don't want it to happen. I pray that it doesn't happen. But I could see a scenario where to report honestly on what is really happening in the United Kingdom, I might have to take Outspoken offshore, because at least overseas, you would be more protected. Start censoring Joe Rogan, who's interviewing Rupert Lowe this week. Right. Are they going to start censoring Megyn Kelly when I go on her show or when Lawrence Fox goes on her show? This is the insanity about where we are at. And I think they need to be very careful. And I also agree with Connie that, look, YouTube isn't perfect. It's had a lot of issues in its past when it comes to free speech, but it does seem to be on our side with this one. And the technology companies need to start fighting back, Mike, because the Labour government are even talking about banning VPNs. So we wouldn't be able to do that thing where, okay, we can skip this because we're going to pretend we're in America. So it's crazy. We are in crazy dystopian times. Anyone who tries to say that we are being hyperbolic when we describe, Slippery Starmer, as I call him, as some type of tin pot authoritarian dictator, just needs to look at these types of regulations, because it's something you'd see in Russia. It's something you'd see in Korea. It's not something you should see in a free Western democracy.
No, it's extraordinary, isn't it? Maybe we'll have to go and set up some kind of Tracy Island for, right-wing independent broadcasters,
As long as it's got a beach.
Thunderbird 3 coming out of the swimming pool or something, But no, I mean, how can anybody with a straight face call the BBC trusted as a media entity? Here's they're getting sued by the President of the United States of America for copying 2 bits of video and supplanting them together and basically making something up. They've also got that guy from Newsnight, who you remember completely forgot to quote Nigel Farage correctly.
Matt Chorley.
Matt Chorley, ex-Times Radio nutcase, who basically said, white, cold rage as opposed to instead of what he actually said. There's one story after another. And isn't it interesting that the BBC have said they're going to have 52 YouTube channels? Suddenly, they want to just swamp it and make sure that the government is on their side, to make sure that, there's 52 channels above your channel and 52 channels above my channel that people get told to watch.
100%. And that's the thing. The BBC has already done this big deal with YouTube, Mike. So why do they then need help from the government? Oh, I know. Because no one's watching their YouTube channels because it's filled with crap. And I mean, let's just look at the BBC as an organisation, Mike. It is the home of the country's worst paedophiles. It's an organisation that when Jill Dando tried to expose what was actually going on there with the paedophiles like Jimmy Savile and Hugh Edwards. Oh, guess what? She ended up dead. It's an organisation that helped contribute to the death of Princess Diana. Now, I put it to you, Mike, that if this were a private company, it would have been shut down decades ago.
Yeah.
So to suggest for even a second that the BBC is some paragon of virtue is laughable. Totally, completely and utterly laughable. But I think what's most twisted about these regulations, Mike, is that they're going to introduce something called vulnerable periods.
Right.
They use this word vulnerable. And when something is vulnerable, and obviously what they mean is when there is a news event that could expose the government's incompetence, or the fact that the government has allowed an Islamist takeover of the country, or the fact the government has locked the country down, whatever it happens to be, they are going to supersede these rules. These rules are all of a sudden going to be like put on speed. And what I believe that means is that during COVID, or during Brexit, or during the so-called riots after Southport, when Axel Rudi-Cabana had murdered those 3 young girls at a Taylor Swift dance class, or we saw it very recently, Mike, when you were on air, the riots in Belfast after an illegal immigrant tried to behead a local called Stephen Ogilvie on the street. During those periods, Mike, the censorship is going to ratchet up a notch because they are so determined to control the message during news events. And we've seen this happen, haven't we? One of the reasons that I believe the independent media has succeeded is because we will tell the truth about these stories. We won't hide behind terms like contempt of court. You know how slippery stuff will always say, you can't talk about this. You can't talk about this because you could upset the legal process. Well, actually, no. We're experienced journalists, Mike. We know whether what we're going to say is going to collapse a trial or not. And guess what? It never did when it came to Axel Rudi-Cabana and Southport, and the fact that, for example, I revealed in the independent media space that he was actually a converted Muslim who was attending the mosque in Belmarsh prison. Guess what? That didn't collapse his murder trial. So often they hide behind this absolute nonsense to try and stop us reporting the truth.
They do, and they also try and sort of insert ridiculous rules that don't exist. You know, like they'll do it in the House of Commons. Oh, we can't talk about that because there's going to be a committee meeting. You go, that's rubbish. You can talk about anything you want. And as you say, we know better than anyone. So it's going to be a fight to the death, this one, I think. And I'm very happy to join forces, as we all will. And even Novara Media, as much as I think they're all a bunch of, left-wing wallies, I want them to be there. I don't want them to disappear just because the government, because, who knows, maybe some other government wouldn't like them. So,
don't you think, Mike, though, that's the difference between us and them? Because you didn't see anyone on the left moaning about Nigel Farage being debanked, when Lloyds took away his bank account. But last week, when the Canary, which is this horrible, awful left-wing organisation, was debanked, they expected it to become the biggest story in the world. Now, for the record, I think it's absolutely disgusting that the Canary was debanked. But I also remember protesting when Novara Media lost its YouTube channel. I was back at Talk Radio then, and all of us spoke out against that. But surprise, surprise, Mike, none of them spoke up for us when we were cancelled. So I do think people on the right, or, I don't even know if these left and right terms necessarily even mean anything these days, but people in this conservative media space, or freedom fighters, actually, I think that's quite a good way to put us now. That's how we all came together over COVID, wasn't it? Yeah. We were fighting for freedom. All of the people that operate in this space, we genuinely do believe in free speech. We do believe in free speech for our rivals. We're not trying to see our rivals debanked or have their YouTube channels taken away or be cancelled or be locked up in prison. But I genuinely believe that is what those on the left want. So I think it is a really fundamental difference between both sides of politics. One side of politics now believes in freedom and the opportunity to debate and the opportunity to have these discussions. The other believes in shutting it down. And Lucy Powell, that is a truly cretinous woman, Mike. Do you know why her Twitter feed or her X feed might be a little bit nasty these days? Because she described the Pakistani Muslim rape gang scandal on the BBC, surprise, surprise, as a dog whistle.
Yeah.
250,000 young English girls up and down the country being raped. That was just a dog whistle to racists, Mike. I have a feeling that might be why her X feed isn't a particularly pretty place to go. Do you know what I mean? It's called democracy.
I wouldn't
If you're
disagree with that.
If you're going to say that, then expect a bit of pushback.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, I'm not going to let you go without some comments on our friend Harry, who's arrived on our shores once again. I've got a poll for you. I'm going to get you to choose what we should do with him, right? Should we send him to the Tower? Should we exile him to the Chagos Islands? Make him live with his uncle Andrew? Or just make him stay married to Meghan, because that's punishment enough? What do you reckon?
Oh my God, it's got to be the latter. I mean, Mike, come on, you're a man. That is having that woman constantly hound you and berate you and tell you you're looking horrible and tell you you're a terrible human being. Like, that is actually a punishment worse than being locked up in the Tower. But Mike, there's going to be such an interesting verdict today at 2 p.m. because we find out the result in the case between, it's been Prince Harry and all of these other lefties like Elton John and Baroness Lawrence versus the Daily Mail. And what's really interesting is he only has to win one of the 14 counts. And if he does win one of the 14 counts, then he's going to give some type of victory speech as if like he was this great freedom fighter and he's the dragon slayer, Mike, and he took down the Daily Mail. Well, I'm sorry, Harry. I don't know if you were following this case, Mike, but he went into court and said that he had no friendship or no relationship whatsoever with a woman called Charlotte Griffiths, who is now the editor-at-large of the Mail on Sunday newspaper. But back in the day, she was a very beautiful, very glamorous, I mean, she still is, but you know what I mean, when she was a younger woman, a diary columnist. And he said, I didn't know that woman, I had no relationship with her. On the last day of the trial, Mike, the Daily Mail was able to produce, as sort of their mic drop moment, a whole transcript of Facebook messages between Charlotte Griffiths and Prince Harry when he referred to her as Charlotte G-string. And let's just say, Mike, they made it pretty clear in those messages that there was a bit of an intimate relationship going on. So my conjecture, Mike, is that Harry committed perjury. And it is going to be very, very interesting to see, well, even if he maybe does win one of these 14 on a technicality, like, does the judge, in his summing up, actually go there and admit that he was lied to by a member of the royal family? Like, I think the case was pretty much a disaster for Prince Harry. So it's going to be very interesting because, of course, he's in the country now, not with the kids or Meghan at this point. But I think a lot is going to be driven on what happens at 2:00 today. It's going to be a really,
absolutely,
really
and he's burned through quite a lot of his inheritance money as well, paying lawyers, because that guy Sherborne's got him by the short and curlies. Keeps going, have another case. Here, give me another 10 million quid. Ship it in. Unbelievable. Dan, listen, great to see you. Loved the show last night. Really, really good. Dan Wootton, of course, back tonight, 5:00.
Yes, 5:00.
See you there. Dan Wootton, independent media king and defender of the freedom of speech that we all need in this country in order to make sure that we can keep the government to account and hold them to account and make sure that they don't get away with anything. Can you imagine if you only had the BBC and ITV and Sky to watch? It'd be absolutely ridiculous. Let's talk to another man who's a great defender of freedom of speech. He is, of course, the one and only Mr. Nigel Pawley. Nigel, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. Look, good to see Dan Wootton there.
Very good to hear his views on Harry and Meghan, because I want to get your take on all of that as well, because we don't know, do we? One, exactly where Harry's staying. We had this rather bizarre story yesterday where I broke the news that he was staying at Buckingham Palace, and about 10 minutes later had to break another bit of news to say, no, sorry, no, he's not staying at Buckingham Palace.
It's weird, isn't it? It's not like they haven't got a few spare houses or spare rooms. It's not like you're coming around at the last minute and we have to make up a sofa bed in the lounge. They've got palaces, they've got secret houses. There are houses all over the royal. He could literally have stayed anywhere and we wouldn't have known where he was staying. There's so many places: Sandringham, Windsor, Clarence House. So they're such a dysfunctional family, though, aren't they? Even their disputes, even doing simple things like coming to visit Grandad, turns into a mass drama. Now, whether it's Harry who is the drama, brings the drama, which I guess a lot of people think. I mean, the king is in a very difficult situation because most court cases and most things, are in his name. And at 2 o'clock, there is, as Dad said, a result in the ongoing case against Associated Newspapers, the Daily Mail. Now, it's going to be awkward for Prince Charles, isn't it, as a neutral, to have his son staying at his house when this kicks off, and Harry will either be really, really disappointed or showboating or whatever. And again, that timing is always wrong with Harry, isn't it? There never seems to be at the right time or in the right place.
No.
And he had a huge amount of goodwill as a member of the armed forces, going onto the front line. I think he could have been one of the more popular, especially this time with Andrew going off piste and being disowned and disgraced. Harry could have had a very big role to play because he has got a common touch. But he's just lost all that completely over 5 years of meltdown. Any goodwill he had has been lost, not just with the royal family. I mean, I don't think Charles hasn't seen his grandchildren in person for 4 years. That's not a normal family, is it?
No.
I mean, whatever happens with families, you normally keep in touch. And especially if you're the royal family, they're normally pretty good at masking. Diana and Charles sort of used to get together to do it. The king, the old queen, and Prince Philip sort of lived separate lives. I think there's no secret that they lived separate lives for many years.
Yeah.
But no one ever knew that. They would get together for the big occasions, smile and do stuff. Harry seems to have this thing where he can't do that. There's no give on his side. And obviously, Charles has been known since he was a kid of being very strong-willed and having, being his own man. And clearly there is a clash there, and neither is giving away. It's tragic for probably the grandchildren, actually. If you take away Meghan and Harry and Charles and Camilla, the grandchildren not knowing your grandparent, not having any contact with them, that is a huge thing for families, whoever you are, whether you're
it is.
a Dossman.
And also with Charles not being very well, at the same time, you sort of throw that into the mix. And I mean, while it says in all the papers this morning that he'd run out of patience with Harry because of his dithering and he couldn't decide whether he was coming or not coming, or whether he was staying or not staying. The one thing we do know is that probably he will not see his brother, William, at all while he's here.
And that's quite sad. Charles has an ongoing health issue. He's clearly struggling. He's being professional and doing it, but he's got a serious illness and he's had it, and it's being treated. I don't think it's being cured. Now, there seems to be a lack of compassion there, doesn't it? For someone who does the Invictus Games, which is all about compassion, the lack of compassion shown to your own parent is quite astonishing. And I don't know, these sort of not being able to sort out simple things like visiting or when you're coming. The other thing that's quite sad is that there is an element after Harry's book and his television programs and revelations, or books, I should say, that there's an element of not having any trust. And if he did come into the family, the heart of the family again, what's going to come out? What's going to be leaked out? And very much that is quite different, because Charles wasn't king previously when Harry was leaking a lot of, stuff was being leaked or written about. Now he is the king. It's a totally different situation for King Charles than it was then. But this has impacted on his son, and not heir, but his beloved son. And I don't know. I think I can't see a resolution to it, because if he's in England, they have all these places they can stay. And they're clearly not talking. They're talking through aides. It sounds like
Right.
I'll get my man to talk to your man, and we can try. I mean, it's horrendous. No families would not have this. I mean, you normally have a good old row at a wedding or something and disappear. And there's always someone who doesn't speak for ages. But in general terms, families come together at important times: illness, weddings, funerals. However much families are at war, they come together at certain times. And this family seems not to be able to do that. And it's made worse by the fact that they happen to be the figureheads for the whole country.
Yeah.
That's the problem that we have.
Well, that is the problem, isn't it? And as Dan Wood was saying there, you've got the court case coming up this afternoon as well. So whenever he does sort of swan into town, there's always some kind of legal matter to be sorted out, isn't there?
I mean, that is an astonishing case, and Dan highlighted it there. And it far be it for me to comment on court cases which are going to be announced later on. But just reading the evidence, and Dan spelled out certain aspects of it. In some areas, there were some credible witnesses in that case, and there were some incredible witnesses, and we'll find out later on which one Harry was.
Yeah. Well, quite. And I mean, the amount of money, I mean, we don't know how much, but he must have spent millions and millions of pounds on legal fees, because
I would think
Sherborne don't come cheap, does he?
I would think it's been going on for about 4 years. There's been about two or three different cases against them. I think the News International, wasn't there? It was on News UK.
Yeah.
I would think he's not got much change below £8 million.
How much?
You're talking on legal fees
Yeah.
over 4 years on huge things
Yeah.
with barristers and stuff's going on. You're looking at up to, I don't know, between £8 million.
Yeah, no, I would have
It's
said,
an astonishing
I would have said 10. Yeah, no, I said you just kind of went quiet just as you said the number. That was the only reason I wasn't
10
sort of
I was
asking you
thinking £10 million.
incredulously.
I was thinking probably about 10 million quid, because those barristers, they're on. It's £1,000 to write a letter.
Yeah.
A minute, So, and they've been working round the clock for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't come cheap. So millions and millions of pounds is being spent, and at the end of the day, is Harry going to come out of this, even if he wins, any better off?
No. Well, you see,
it'll be a hollow victory. I think he could have walked away with dignity and said, "Look, I've been hounded. My family's been hounded by these newspapers.
Yeah.
It's horrendous." He could have done. He could have attacked them and criticised them. But he had this thing where he had to bring them down,
Yeah.
and it's almost like a dog with a bone that he's got to destroy the Daily Mail.
Yeah.
Historically for his family, and he still has issues with what the press allegedly he feels hounded his mother, Diana. So it's an astonishing situation where he seems to have lacked all reason, and people advising him, whether he takes on board that stuff, because he doesn't trust. He said that the royal family, the royal advisors, were briefing against him. He's obviously someone who has trust issues.
Right.
I think it's fair to say, big time. Now, he's being used, I would say, as a journalist who knows the people involved in this, and we've all worked on the papers that come under fire. There are people who are behind the organisation that does a lot of the anti-hacking stuff, and also some of these court cases, who also have an agenda to bring down certain aspects of the press. Harry is their figurehead. He is being used by them just as much.
Of course he is. Well, he's being used. I mean, the guy's so thick, right, that he's being taken for a very long ride by his lawyers, who keep telling him he should keep suing people so they can continue to make their millions. He's been taken for a ride by the hacked off crowd. He's been taken for a long ride by his own brain, because he's forgotten that his mother, Diana, was incredibly good at manipulating the press and incredibly good at making phone calls to people like Piers Morgan and Richard Kay and the Daily Mail and various other people that she fancied talking to whenever she wanted to. The idea that she was being manipulated by the press is a joke. It was the other way around.
It was. She used to come to some of our events, and she was fantastic. I mean, Diana was a brilliant. I mean, she absolutely rinsed the royal family's PR communication.
Totally.
She ran rings around the royal family. The royal family were this stuffy people who were used to sending telegrams and putting up flags and things. And she was a modern day. I mean, if social media had been around when Diana was alive, she would have been the queen. She would have had millions and millions of followers, and would have been the queen of social media, because she knew how to do it. But she also knew how to play the victim. And that is what Harry, Harry obviously loved his mother and saw the tragedy, and he was very, very young. We all remember him walking behind her coffin, this little lad, he was about 8 or 9, 8 wasn't he, or something, when he had that horrendous walk. And that sort of thing does scar you. But he seems to have forgotten his position in life, and it's beneath it. Lawyers will always, no lawyers ever said don't sue.
No.
It's a win-win for them, isn't it? Win or lose.
Well, exactly.
They get paid. So he has allowed his heart to rule his head in many ways, and I think it's going to come at a cost to him, and it's going to be a big cost, financially, reputationally, and
no
question.
question.
That's the thing with him, and I don't think there's any coming back for him now. If he'd have come back here now, had a picture on the balcony or somewhere with his dad, or walking in the gardens, whatever, there's some sort of getting back together again, I think that could have been the start of him at least being accepted back and living his life, but still part there, but over the sea. But this is the latest in a long line of issues, and every time he's anywhere near this country, there's an issue.
Yeah.
So that's,
I know.
yeah,
It's a
not
shame.
good. An unhappy man.
Very unhappy man. I'm going to talk to Tim Montgomery in a second, but just before I leave you, quick word on the ITV Sky situation. Sky buying ITV for 1.6 billion quid. Not great news for ITV, is it?
No, I mean, just when you think that ITV are fairly woke, they've got Sky News. So, and the Sky, I fear for ITV. I mean, all joking aside, should we have? I mean, Sky is actually owned by Americans now, Comcast, isn't it? So we are losing. We've lost EasyJet this week to Americans. We are being hollowed out in this country. ITV started going down the pan when the Blair government allowed. I think it was James Purnell actually. They allowed ITV not to have local news and local stations, and all centralised it. It's an easy target. The linear television or television like ITV is dying on its feet. People are streaming, people are going to Netflix, people are watching people like you on YouTube and other channels. ITV hasn't moved with the times. It was easy pickings. Will it be any better under Sky? Looking at Sky's output, I don't think so.
No, it's pretty awful. And where's James Purnell now? Oh, yeah, he's going back into Downing Street as the Chief of Staff of Andy Burnham. Yeah, marvellous, isn't it? Nigel, great to see you.
We were on the wrong carousel, mate, honestly.
Oh, I don't know. I'd rather be on mine, I think. Nigel, good to see you. Thanks very much indeed. Nigel Pawley there, giving us his lowdown on the Prince Harry, Harry situation. The Herbert, formerly known as Prince, as I like to call him. Let's talk now to Tim Montgomery, who is, of course, the founder of Conservative Home. Now, with Reform, I don't want to say too much about your role at Reform, Tim. A very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. It's an interesting.
It's good to be back on your show.
Yeah, very good to see you. Interesting times, I suppose you would say. We've got Nigel Farage clearly very upset and angry about something that happened yesterday with Sky News, and whether or not they went and doorstepped his daughter, which he says they did. They said they didn't. It's a difficult period, I guess, to be in the party at the moment. What are you making of it all?
Yeah, I think it's a potentially defining time for Reform, Mike. The Makerfield by-election obviously wasn't what the party wanted. And since then, we've had this massive media onslaught about Nigel Farage's personal finances. And at the same time, a new Prime Minister's coming in who traditionally gets a bounce in the opinion polls. So I think it's important Reform holds their nerves steady, because at a fundamental level, both of the main political parties are failing in this country. And Nigel Farage, over a long period, whether it's immigration or climate change or tax or crime, he's been on the side of the British people's natural instincts. But there's no doubt about it, this is a rough time. And I think there is definitely a case for saying that on some of the ways answered the questions he's been put, he could have answered them better, and shouldn't look so exasperated when he's asked questions, because I think that doesn't come across well to floating voters.
But it has been a terribly difficult time, because there's no question in my mind anyway that there is a kind of a concerted effort at the moment to just pile one story on top of another. I mean, on top of the hardborn situation, suddenly they're doing stories about how many houses Nigel Farage has got. Now they're doing stories about his friend George Cotterill, and there's so many other stories that the press could be looking at. And certainly, in terms of the way that things are panning out, it's very clear that there are. We've just been talking about the royal family. You might say there are dark forces at work who are attempting to kind of, shall we say, at least if not put off Nigel Farage from running, try and dissuade him from wanting to be Prime Minister.
Well, look, at a fundamental level, Mike, where they can't beat Nigel Farage, he's been right about the big issues of our time. Yeah. People feel like on energy prices, which have destroyed British manufacturing, that mean that people struggle to heat their homes in the winter. Nigel Farage has been right. He's been right about the level of immigration. He's been right about the fact that the main political parties serve themselves rather than the people at large. They're not going to get at Nigel Farage by overthrowing him on issues. So they have to do personal attacks. And Nigel Farage has to, I fear, get used to this because it's the way the media operates. If he looks too angry about it, that will only reinforce the sense that some people who are suspicious about reform, that there's something to hide. I don't believe there's anything to hide. I think Nigel Farage is a man of integrity, but I think he does need, he's probably one of the best media performers, Mike, in British politics. But when he's asked about his own personal circumstances, he looks a bit tetchy. I probably would too. You probably would.
Yeah.
But it doesn't help his standing with voters if he does overreact to this line of questioning.
No, exactly right. And I mean, I think at the end of the day, there is a kind of a paradigm shift that happens whenever there's a by-election. And I think the media have actually got it wrong, because Andy Burnham clearly thinks that having won Makerfield, he can now win. I think he thinks in his own mind he can win a general election. I think some of the pundits in the Westminster bubble think that suddenly sort of Labour are back and they could win a general election. I think they're completely wrong about that. I think, you know, it's nonsense. He won a very unusual by-election with a very large turnout, who wanted, and most of the people who voted for him, wanted to get Keir Starmer out of Downing Street. They didn't vote because they wanted Andy Burnham in there.
Yeah, I think that's true. But here's, if I want to be gloomy, Mike, I'm sorry to be gloomy on a sunny morning, but if I was to be gloomy, you look at opinion polling of young people, and they've come through a school system that neither you or I have been happy about for a long time.
Yeah.
There's a left-wing movement in the values of young people, which means that compared, for example, to the 1980s, Britain is probably a much more left-wing country. We're quite like Canada in a lot of attitudinal surveys. So if the right is divided at a time like this, which it is between the Conservative Party and Reform, it's much harder to win. If the right was united, we could probably compete with Labour and the Liberal Democrats. Let's not forget, they won 70 seats at the last election. They're hard to displace. And I think Andy Burnham's talking about electoral reform. I think he's thinking, Mike, not necessarily just about an outright Labour majority, but a permanent, almost permanent left-wing coalition with the Lib Dems and potentially the Greens. And so long as the Tories and Reform are fighting it out like they are, and it's getting grubbier and nastier at the moment, that gives the advantage to Labour. So I'm with you, Mike. Andy Burnham is not going to be the saviour of this country, but look at the electoral arithmetic at the moment, and it's an uphill struggle for those of us who believe that we need to cut taxes, that we need to fight crime, that we need to control immigration. That's not where a lot of people are, I'm afraid, at the moment. And Labour could easily cobble together a coalition to 5 more years in power.
But again, is that more of a London-centric view that you're espousing there? And I don't disagree with it, because if you go to other parts of the country, notwithstanding Manchester, of course, and maybe notwithstanding central kind of cities, which tend to be more left-wing anyway.
Yeah.
Would you not say that the kind of the bulk of, say, for example, the prior working class Labour vote is much more likely to agree with Reform's policies now than with Labour's?
Well, there's this great switcheroo happening in British politics. You're right about that, Mike. Working class people now vote Reform.
Yeah.
There was a poll from trade union members, particularly in the private sector. They now largely support Reform, or as much as Labour. Labour's no longer the party of Labour or the party of the working class. Yeah. But at the same time, Reform is making inroads into lower income and more blue collar workers in the north, in coastal places, etc. Remain, Liberals, better educated, university educated people are moving leftwards. I used to know, when I was campaigning for the Conservatives in the past, Mike, you went up a gravel drive, there was a nice car in the garage, they would almost certainly vote Conservative. Not now. The chances are they'll vote Labour, Green or Liberal Democrats. Yeah. It's happening all over the world. And so in an environment like that, where a lot of affluent people in Britain still, they're not voting for right-wing parties anymore, I don't think we can be complacent or allow the divisions on the right to continue. Because if we do, we'll get beaten.
And what's your view of the Conservatives at the moment? Because a lot of people talk about Kemi Badenoch having a bit of a resurgence, being much better at Prime Minister's questions than she's been from the start of her sort of leadership. But yet, I wonder that again is a bit of a Westminster bubble conception that she's doing better than the Tories than the party's actually doing as a whole.
Well, she certainly has a lot of cheerleaders in the press, doesn't she?
She does.
I'm really
loads.
grateful for stations like channels like yours, Mike, because there's still an awful lot of Tory commentators, have been Tory commentators for years, who defend the party come what may, and it's independent media that is driving the revolt of parties like Reform. Same in other parts of the world. On Kemi and the Tories, she's better than I thought she'd be. I think she's actually quite sound on most issues. The Conservative Party, one of the reasons I left is a lot of Conservative MPs don't share Kemi Badenoch's values. There's a lot of, if the Tory Party could choose to put Reform or the Liberal Democrats into power at the next election, I think there are probably a quarter to a third of Tory MPs who would put the Lib Dems in power. Look how they talk about Reform. They hate Nigel Farage. The Tory party is the problem, not the Tory leader, I think. And I don't think the country's forgiven the Tories. They're doing okay in London, but outside of the southeast, in the north, in Wales, in Scotland, in coastal towns, in towns rather than cities, they are nowhere to be seen. They are no longer a national party. Whereas Reform can win in almost every part of the country, potentially. And so at the moment, I think the Tories, they're not dead. We haven't knocked them out of the game, but they aren't really a national force in politics. They're just blocking Reform's possibility of becoming a government at the moment.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We've got a clip, actually, of Kemi talking about Nigel Farage and the whole Rupert Lowe situation. Let's have a look at that.
Rupert Lowe's becoming your sort of secret weapon, really, isn't he? He's very helpful to you.
Rupert Lowe was created by Nigel Farage. And this is, when people talk about uniting the right, I say, I want to unite the country. How do you unite with somebody like Nigel Farage who falls out with everybody that he works with, every single political outfit? How do you work with someone like that? Why would I suddenly think that, oh, I'm going to ignore all those hundreds of people he's fallen out with, it's going to be different this time? Why would I think that? And he's not my secret weapon, he's his own person, but he is a problem that Farage created himself, like this scandal that he's having right now. These are all self-inflicted issues. That Nigel Farage creates his own problems, and he has to deal with that. I think if he'd treated Rupert Lowe better with some respect, I found the whole thing quite bizarre. For people who claim to be anti-woke, the cancel culture of reporting one of your MPs to the police for stuff that turned out to be unfounded, I thought was pretty wrong.
But
again, she says things which you wonder about the longevity of them. You know what I mean?
Well, look, I think that was a disgraceful set of remarks by Kemi, to be honest. Why did Nigel Farage oust Rupert Lowe from Reform? He did it because some of the views that Rupert Lowe was expressing on X were quite extreme. And Nigel Farage gets attacked for being an extreme right-winger by Conservatives. But actually, whether it's Tommy Robinson, whether it's Rupert Lowe, whether it's a whole range of other people, Nigel Farage chucks out people he thinks are extremists in a way, for example, that Jeremy Corbyn never did for the Labour Party. Zach Polanski doesn't do it in the Green Party. Nigel Farage is very good at not tolerating people with extreme views. And rather than attacking him for that, it's very sad to see Kemi Badenoch, Tory commentators, giving Nigel Farage no credit at all for the way that he polices the line, as Margaret Thatcher used to do in the 1970s. She was basically by attacking by taking a strong line on immigration, etc. She beat the National Front in the 1970s. And Nigel Farage is our bulwark in British politics today against extremism. He's not the extremist. And it annoys me when he doesn't get enough credit for that.
Yeah, I was at a party, believe it or not, on Sunday, actually, where there were a few Conservative types knocking about. And they're all kind of sitting around quite cock-a-hoop at the moment, thinking that it's all going horribly wrong for reform. And I don't think they're looking in the mirror, to be honest. You know?
No, well, they really should. And the fact is, the British people are fair, and they will give the Conservative Party another chance if they explain why their period in government went so badly wrong last time. You know, they said that they would cut taxes, they put taxes up. They said they would increase home ownership, it fell. They said they control immigration, they didn't. And a lot of the people who are responsible for those policies are still in top positions. They haven't explained why they got it so wrong. And my worry, my fear, Mike, was if they got into power again quickly, they think they could do anything, because they really would be forgiven too quickly and without actually putting things right. So I don't think the Conservatives have much of a chance at the next election. But yes, it's true. I've been at those parties too, and they're certainly enjoying the discomfort of Nigel Farage at the moment. They seem more interested in hurting reform sometimes than hurting the Labour Party.
They do. Now, let me just, I know you've got to run, so we're going to finish up with your founding of Conservative Home was a big moment in sort of media history, if you like, because it was a time when the internet was not quite used in the same way that it is now. Is there a place for something like that from reform's perspective now, do you think?
Yeah, I was intending to launch something last week with the working title Reform Home. I'm running a bit behind schedule for various reasons, but the reason I've decided to go ahead with the project, Mike, is I've tried internally on lots of issues to make progress. I made some progress on some issues, but not all of them. And actually, I think Nigel Farage is encouraging of this move. Actually having some honest debate within reform about people who care about the party, about some of the big challenges we face, is probably going to be a good thing. Reform HQ is a bit nervous about it. They don't like any internal discussion. But I'm glad to say Nigel Farage is a grown-up, and he's given this project a blessing, his blessing. And if you're kind enough, I'll come back on the show when it's up and running and talk about some of the issues that we'll be looking at.
Absolutely, brilliant. Tim, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed, and great to see you on the show as ever. Tim Montgomery there, who's putting together a plan for reform to have more conversations within their own sort of walls, if you like, about differences of opinion, which some people perceive to be something that doesn't happen enough, perhaps, inside that organisation. But we'll keep you informed, obviously. Now, Intel Lady's coming up a little bit later on. I'm going to play you a clip in a little while, which is really, really funny. She's done Fergie, the former wife of Prince Andrew, of course, or the prince formerly known as Prince Andrew. We've got lots more coming on. Alex Watts is going to be here as well, and David Williams from Crowborough Aware. Let's get some news first of all, though, should we, with Edward Hughes?
Good morning, I'm Edward Hughes. Prince Harry kicks off his charity visit amid fresh palace drama. The Buckingham Palace stay offer was withdrawn at the last minute, after he supposedly accepted it. Family harmony at its finest. England's epic World Cup win over Mexico is still buzzing, though poor Jordan Henderson might need wrist surgery from all that celebrating. We're deep in the third heat wave with scorching 30+ degrees Celsius days, melting the nation, while fighter jets intercept Russian planes near our carriers because apparently Monday wasn't exciting enough. Starmer's government soldiers on with defence rows and welfare headaches. Classic Britain, football highs, royal lows, and sweat-soaked chaos. Laters, tigers.
Edward Hughes there with the news. Thank you very much indeed. He'll be here all week until Friday, of course, when it's time for Fiona MacLeod, who will return at that time. Now, coming up, as I said earlier, we've got Intel Lady coming, so I'd quite like to give you all a flavour, just before we speak to David Williams from Crowborough Aware, about what's going on down at that army camp, which is now filled with migrants. Let's have a look at this. This is the brilliantly talented Intel Lady doing Fergie.
Well, the last time we spoke, I was having a ruddy, lovely time in a retreat, relaxing, healing my heart, healing the hurt and the pain and the trauma, frankly, that I've suffered over the last year of my life. It's been dreadful for me. So I needed to go to a retreat just to get my head straight, as the youth say. And that time is over now. I've had to move on because I can't afford it, really. Can't afford to stay. So I'm now coming to you again because yet again the press have decided intrusion into my life sells newspapers. It's disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful. It gets clicks online, it sells papers talking about my past, which is just, it's finished, it's over, it's done with. But you got to dredge it up again, talking about how I went to visit my friend Jeff when he was in prison. Well, that's not true. It's a lie. It's a bloody lie. I did not go to the prison because he wasn't in it. He was in an open prison and he had an office that he was allowed to go to a couple of times a week. I went there during his prison sentence.
She's just amazing, isn't she? She's going to be appearing to talk about the whole Meghan Markle-Harry scenario. She may even be seen as Meghan Markle. You never know. But let's talk now to David Williams from Crowborough Aware. He founded this organisation down there in Crowborough, a beautiful part of the world, which has now got a former army camp turned into a migrant sort of holding pen, if you like, except it doesn't hold them in. It lets them wander around freely. David, very good morning to you. Welcome.
Good morning, Mike. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to see you. Thanks for coming on the show. It's obviously been a pretty traumatic time, I would imagine, if you're a resident of Crowborough, to see that this has kind of been imposed not just on yourselves, but on other parts of the country where the Home Office doesn't seem to take any notice or consideration of anybody's local feelings about what's going on. Tell us a bit about what's happening at the moment and tell us a bit about Crowborough Aware.
Okay, so coming back to 2025, it all started building up here around about November time, and a slow progress of building the camp up in readiness for the migrants to come into our community. The camp went live in January, and what you had was a situation where this awful Home Secretary thought it was good, right and proper to bring the first batch of illegal migrants in the small hours. So nothing to see here, although, we have to bring them in the small hours just to kick off the camp. And there's been a slow build up over time. We probably get now two coach loads a week come in, depositing more migrants. There's obviously a turnover. Some get pushed out to dispersed accommodation and processed like that. I think, in terms of what's been happening in Crowborough, I have to say, and I say this, unreservedly, this is like a monster that's been deposited right into the core of our community. This is a community of 22,000 people. Right. The town is just not set up for this at all. And over time, being part of Crowborough Aware, a lot of information feeds into us from all of the residents and everywhere else. We deal with the police as well. We also deal with the Home Office. And we've had a mix of antisocial behaviour, drugs, alcohol. We've had an assault. Most recently, I think we've had this migrant that was accused of raping a woman in Germany, arrested here. So has he been out in our community? How many of the other migrants here have this unknown history that none of us are aware of, just wandering freely around this town? This is a small town, Mike, and it's just not up to dealing with something like this, and we're absolutely determined. There you go. That's the sort of thing. That particular image you see there, I recovered 17 bottles of alcohol, 2 bottles of vodka, and 10 people from the community walked those 3 individuals back down into the camp. We escorted them, right. Not by force. We escorted them back down into the camp. I collected up all the bottles and I handed them to Clear Springs Ready Homes, to the people that are running the security in the camp. Right. Now, to be fair to them, they do respond when we pass some information to them. The gentleman or the lovely gentleman that did the assault on one of the community members here, he vanished. So they removed him. We've had a couple of other individuals that shoulder bumping people, very aggressive, giving all sorts of, just aggressive.
Yeah.
We advised them about them as well. They were removed. So they are responding. They are trying to respond to our concerns. But at the end of the day, when you have this deposited in a community like this, it's just awful. And now you've got Bicester, Barnum and Linton all now also coming online, again under this awful Home Secretary, and pushed by the Alex Norris, who's just as bad.
Yeah.
So I hope that gives a little bit of a flavour of where we are.
Sure. And I mean, it's terrifying in a way because, when you say they've removed these people who have who you've complained about or who have done something wrong, you have to ask the next question, well, where have they gone? Removed to where, says Steve. And I mean, I know that's not possibly your major concern at first, but it's like they're sort of shuffling these people around. And fascinating to hear you tell us, David, that more coach loads are coming in. And they seemingly are processing these people, because all we hear from the Labour government all the time is, oh yeah, we're processing people's asylum claims a lot quicker than we used to. But what they're not saying is that they're turning them all down. They're basically granting them asylum and they're giving them a house.
Well, yeah, I mean, from my understanding, I think 66, 70% are given a successful asylum claim, so they're given leave to stay in the country, and therefore they can work then, they can exist within our communities.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, Mike, we've got some real serious cultural issues that are going on here. Aside the cultural issues, this country's in 3 trillion of debt. That's nearly our GDP. We can't afford this. Aside everything else and the dangers that this brings to our communities, it's unaffordable. And yet we're still bringing in, I think, on average, 600-700 migrants a week, and processing them through Manston, and now they're going to be dispersed out to all of these army camps. I feel so sorry for the 3 new sites that have been marked as coming online. You watch all the comments, Mike, and you can see, they're going through the same pain and the same denial as we went through when it was announced here. But what we are doing, as Kroger are aware, we've decided to try and blueprint what we've done here. We've reached out to these other towns and sites, and we said, look, we've been through this pain. We see what you're going through. We can help you, and try and set up more of a national collaboration so that the people can strength in numbers. People can get together and see if we can defeat this. We've got 3 strands in Crowborough. We've got Crowborough Aware, which is the patrol group. We've got Crowborough Says No, that are running the protest march every Sunday. And we've got the brilliant Crowborough Shield. Now, Crowborough Shield have raised fantastic amounts of money. I think we're over £300,000 to take this government and Home Secretary to court. We've now got a court date of 21st of this month. We've got about another £25,000 we've got to raise. So if any of your listeners can donate anything, just Google Crowborough Shield. You'll find the details. We've got to get that money. We've already been to court once and had the Judge Mould throw it out, essentially on the technicality. And let's not forget, Judge Mould, he was the one that rubber stamped Epping and brought Epping back online. So what is he? Handpicked just for us. So it goes on, Mike, and it really is a desperate situation, not just for us, but it's going to be for the whole country.
Sure. Well, just looking at that picture of those 3 characters there, drinking cans of beer in public and stuff. I mean, these are clearly very young individuals. You don't know where they've come from, really. You don't know what they've done. We find out more and more information only really when one of them commits a crime. And then suddenly we find out, what they've done before and where they've been, and it's extraordinary. I mean, that guy that you talked about, who had committed murder in Germany. I mean, how the hell did he get into Britain?
I think it was a rape, actually, Mike, if memory serves.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I may be confusing with another one. There's another guy who came here who committed a murder in Germany and served time in a prison in Germany, and then somehow made it here.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I interact with the migrants on a regular basis through the patrol that myself and members of the community set up. And you hear some of the stories, most of which their claims it's just not believable. But I spoke to one individual. He started off in Russia. He come right across Russia through Europe. I said, "How did you find your welcome in Europe?" He said, "Well, the Italians absolutely detest us." And we were slowly being shifted across over to France, and lo and behold, they turn up on our shores. And I've asked them, why are you coming here? And they said to me, Section 95, 97, 98, and I had no idea what these sections were. So you Google those sections, and then you suddenly find a whole raft and list of what they get, what they're entitled to. So the draw into this country is so immense now that, if you're going to create that sort of scenario where there's such a draw, how are you ever going to deter them? Okay, they're meant to set up these camps to make it less of a draw. But when you've got all the charities giving them music lessons, taking them on away day trips and all the rest of it, I'm very close to the camp, Mike. I see everything that's coming and going pretty much. And it's eye-watering. Not, I did a bit of math based on £160 per migrant per night. Over the next year, that's 35 million and 6 million of policing. Now, please someone explain to me how that's less costly than a hotel. What's the whole idea of these camps? Is it just optics they're doing it for? Well, what is the purpose?
Yeah. And also, if you're going to use these things, then surely it would make more sense to make them secure. You've worked in security in your previous life. I mean, you put them behind a fence and you shut the door. Surely, you don't just let them wander about freely and as if they own the place.
Well, what actually happens is, the access road into the camp, you've gone from a couple of 3 cars a day when it was not the processing centre to 250 cars. There's pickups, there's drop-offs, and they're allowed to leave the camp up to 7 days at a time. Now, what's meant to happen, if they return and they've exceeded that 7 days, they're refused entry. And they're turned away. Now, I was invited into the camp by the Home Office last week, and reluctantly, I decided to accept and go and engage with a Q&A. Now, the lady that runs Napier, Wethersfield, and now Crowborough, she said clearly to me, she said, the problem is, if we turn them away, what the charities then do is they give them tents, they give them sleeping bags. And she said at Wethersfield, where they'd clearly breached the conditions of their asylum claim, they were camping en masse outside the gates. So the charities are now supporting it to a level that, we can't even, as a country, or the Home Office, or indeed the Clear Springs, say you breached your conditions, you're not coming in, you're rejected. So whatever way you go, whether it's the police safeguarding them, the charities facilitating it, it's going to get worse. If they don't start getting this by the scruff and dealing with it, it's going to get a lot worse, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Well, have a look at this. I've got a little video clip for you. This is from somebody called the Nowhere Photographer. And this is in France. I think it's in a decathlon. He's witnessed a load of migrants basically buying life jackets with crisp €50 notes. Check this out.
1, 2, 3. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Thank you.
So, I mean, that's what's going on the other side of the channel. There's another story today saying that Shabana Mahmood's Home Office is about to pay 30 million quid to an offshore wind company, which was previously paid presumably to create offshore wind, basically to run a bunch of vessels in the channel to rescue and transport migrants recovered from the channel, and 2 recovery vessels to lift and seize the boats. They're handling up to 100 migrants per boat, providing basic medical facilities, separate migrant crew toilets, and CCTV covering all deck areas. I mean, you know, this is an industry now, isn't it?
I tell you what, as the weeks and the days and the weeks go by, Mike, nothing surprises me. I mean, you've probably been privy to seeing the way that the dinghies, when they arrive in the UK, are repackaged up, put in a lorry, and then sent back to France. Now, why is that happening?
Right.
What I mean, you know, along with all the life jackets and everything else, you know, that was clearly filmed. Why are they not being destroyed here? Why are we shipping them back? You know, are they being shipped back to be reused? I mean, it really is an industry. And if you have a look on Companies House and have a good dig into Clear Springs Ready Homes, you look at the sort of money, the sort of levels of money that's involved here. You know, it really is an industry. Not just that, all of the supporting services that we see in this camp. You've got taxis going in, day out, food trucks day in, day out, tankers. It's eye-watering. And when you think that this country is, you know, let's be fair, it's almost on its knees financially. People can't afford to go out. People can't afford food. And watching this going on in this camp, it's offensive.
It really is.
Offensive. It really is. You know, it's terrible.
It is. I mean, kids, you know, wanting to try and get to university, they can't get loans to go there. You know, kids who want to try and get work can't get work because there isn't any. You know, these people are just coming into the country and being handed everything on a plate. It's disgusting. I think for an awful lot of people in this country who's had enough.
It is, and then you see that you know, I don't want to bring race, creed, or colour into it. From my understanding, white young lads now are amongst the worst performing in education in the country. So, you know, aside all of the 2-tier issues that we're all aware of, as Brits and native Brits, we are being disadvantaged now, and it's stark. We can all see it, and that's why this country is becoming so resolute. We've had enough, and this is all the way down from, you know, all the way down from business people. You know, I've even got police friends that they find it so offensive that they don't want to be part of the police anymore. They don't want to be delivering those services to the community anymore because the leadership's so poor. We've heard from Nigel Farage, who's a bit of a crusader, and he will tell it as it is. Good on him. That the police are being given instruction on how to deal with different parts of the community. You know, so we, as a white native Britishman, you know, I'm going to be dealt with differently to someone that's coming on a boat. You know, hang on a second. What is going on? What is going on? It's not just that. I think the fabric and the community in this country is so impacted that you know, it's really destroying the soul of this country. Something has got to be done, and you know, something's got to change, and it's got to change soon because I actually personally find this a desperate situation in this country.
David, you're absolutely right, and great work that you're doing. So thank you for doing that on behalf of everyone, not just in Crowborough, but elsewhere. And I know that you're talking to the other sites as well. So we'll direct some people, if we can, to Crowborough Shield, I think you said it was.
Yes, please. If you could, we've got about 25,000 to raise. We've got to get that last bit of money in because King's Council is not cheap. I think we're up to, the 2 rounds of court action. I think we're up to over £350,000 we've had to raise as a community. And aside anything else, people are digging deep here. They can't afford this. Some people, they're giving eye-watering amounts of money. And they prefer to be giving that to their grandchildren or going on a nice holiday.
Yeah.
But such is the situation here that we're not going to sit back and be road rolled by this Home Secretary. What an awful woman she is. And we're not going to sit back, and we're going to keep going, and we're not going to stop, and we're going to get this country talking, collaborating. Each site that she wants to bring on, we're going to talk and we're going to collaborate and we're going to try and help them get up and running like we've done.
Brilliant. Well, we'll do what we can for you as well, David. Thanks very much indeed for talking to us. David Williams there from Crowborough Aware. Brilliant guy, and doing a fantastic job of raising awareness, if nothing else, but also patrolling the streets of Crowborough to make them safe for the locals there because of the numbers of people who have been shipped in without their permission, without their blessing, and without any warning, really, at all. Coming up, Major Alex Watts is here, back by popular demand. We're going to talk to him in a second. But first, I think it's time for a little meltdown, isn't it?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So if you didn't listen to that last interview I did and feel absolutely and utterly furious, I don't know what I can say to you, because listening to David Williams talking from Crowborough about the numbers of people, the sheer numbers of people being imposed upon their community, only 22,000 people in a lovely, lovely little town in the southeast of England, hundreds and hundreds of migrants illegally having arrived on these shores, sometimes with the help of the Home Office, sometimes with the help of the French authorities, the French police, sometimes with the help of charities, sometimes just with the help of do-gooders who think that it's a good idea to allow these men of fighting age to come into the country. They're sitting around drinking, they're sitting around taking drugs, some of them are committing crimes, and it's happening all over the country. And as he said, it's soul-destroying. We find out this morning, as I said, that the Home Office, through the works of Shabana Mahmood, have committed to a £30 million contract with an offshore wind company in order to rescue and bring in more and more migrants by the hundreds, by the thousands, over the course of the next several years. Right? Contract documents show Border Force wants 7 vessels from Aeolian offshore, 5 migrant rescue vessels to rescue and transport migrants recovered from the Channel, 2 recovery vessels to lift and seize the boats. They've also got a media clause in the contract in which it says the owner shall ensure that any subcontractor shall not communicate with representatives of the press, television, radio or other media, including social media, on any matter concerning the contract and deployment unless prior permission has been given in writing. And if it does happen, and if they do talk to the press, then the contract could be finished off. As you heard there from David Williams, Clearspring, one of the big companies managing all of the hotels and managing all of the migrants going into HMOs, are making a fortune. Serco, another company, making an absolute fortune. We then, on the legal side of migration, find out today, thanks to another study that's been done, that as many as 15 family members of one person being given a work visa to come to this country is the ratio that we're having to put up with. So when 2,000 Indian visas were granted for Indians to come and work in this country, for example, more than 10,500 people came because they were all members of the family. People coming from Cameroon, there were just a few dozen visas handed out, but instead hundreds of people came because they were all members of the same family. This country has been taken for a very long and a very expensive ride. And if it only ends up costing us money, then we'll probably get away with it. But I think it's going to cost us an awful lot more. And that's why. That's my meltdown for today. I'm sorry to end the show on what can only be considered to be a pretty much of a downer, but we've got Intel Lady coming before the end as well, so hopefully she'll cheer us up with a bit of Harry and Meghan action. But first of all, let me say a very good morning once again, and a welcome back to Major Alex Watts. Alex, good to see you.
Very good to see you too.
Nice to have you back. In contrast, I suppose, to what we've just heard from David Williams there down in Crowborough, I know you're looking at setting up something called the Veterans Alliance.
Yes.
And you want to talk about that. But talk to me, first of all, a little bit about this kind of complicit industry, effectively, that we've got going on.
But this suits the government's. The government have no interest in stopping migration. They need to continue to do that, because what it does is it divides society. They want to divide society because they want to create attrition, and they want to create resentment. This is everything that they are doing is because they have to split us apart, and at the same time they're controlling the narrative. So everything that's going on around us at the moment, and I'm not being a conspiracy theorist, everything around us is controlling the narrative for the objectives that I talked about briefly last time I was here, which is that they want to create civil unrest. They want to create, to be honest, they want to create civil war, because if they create civil war, they are then able to impose martial law. And if they do that, the election will be cancelled. The general election will be cancelled. And I know that sounds dramatic, but that's exactly what they want to do, because at the moment they're looking at, if they call a snap election, the government at the moment right now, they're going to have to time it brilliantly well in order for them to ensure that they will win either in coalition with one of the other left-wing parties to then continue their. But that's an outside chance at the moment. But for example, all the stuff that's going on with reform at the moment, and Nigel Farage and the fact that he's under, that is all designed to collapse reform. Yeah. Restore have been battered. The Tories are so if they can split the right vote and then call a snap election, that gives them a much greater advantage. But that's an outside chance.
Yeah, because I think they've got it wrong in the sense that they think, because they've won in Makerfield, which is a very unusual victory in a way for Andy Burnham.
Yeah.
I think they think that they're now back and Labour is now in the ascendancy.
Well, of course,
but I don't think it is.
No, nothing will change. Nothing will change. Their agenda is exactly the same. Andy Burnham is Starmer 2. Yeah. Slightly more presentable and a slightly more affable character, but he is a Fabian, like the rest of them are Fabians. Everyone says he hasn't got a mandate. He's going to be told what to do. He's going to be told these are your objectives. He won't have any say in it at all. As I said, the strings are being pulled by outside the government. These guys are just puppets, and they want to achieve the objectives, like I've explained before, which is basically that we become part of a globalist state, and in effect, it's communism. That's what they want, and this is being applied to all countries across Europe, Canada, Australia. It's the same agenda, and they will do anything to go there. And you look around you. We're being censored. We're being silenced.
Yeah.
I saw a post yesterday that apparently, if there's a general election, they're going to censor social media.
Yeah. Well, they're trying to. They want to. I mean, we've been talking about this earlier because we've now got this situation going on where they're trying to get their mitts on YouTube, and particularly shows like this, where they can say, there are things you won't be able to do, and we will push your show away from the algorithm that will allow people to see it. It's quite extraordinary.
And a bit like sort of North Korea. Mainstream media are now going to be
like North
pushed.
Korea. It is North Korea.
We're in 1984. They're going to push the narrative. This is the thing, that they have got all of their resources, their intelligence resources, and specific organisations like RICU, 77 Brigade. Even the intelligence services are all directed towards shaping the narrative. So you talk about psychological operations. That is exactly what they're doing, I'm getting frustrated because people can't see that, and it's not anyone's fault. It's because they're doing it so effectively. I mean, it's like the Citizens Vigilante, the film that's just come out, that's been banned in all these different places. And there's a huge surprise because apparently they're not going to ban it here. They're going to allow it to be shown in cinemas.
Right.
But of course, there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is because they want to inspire people to do what is articulated in that film, because they want to create attrition. They want an excuse. They want an excuse to be able to lock down this.
But
this
if that
country.
was true, though, right? And I'm not saying it isn't true. But if that was true, why did the Tories not do it? And how did they lose control?
Well,
they're not in government anymore.
No. But so Tony Blair created all the conditions for what we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
When he was in power.
Yeah.
He basically gave independence to the civil service. He gave independence to the judiciary. Always kind of were there. The Bank of England, the entire establishment infrastructure. And because he knew that the Tories were going to come into power at some stage, but he also knew that Labour were going to come in, and Keir Starmer has always been groomed to do the job that he's done so far. And the Tories' biggest mistake was that they didn't undo what he put in place.
Yeah.
So David Cameron
they
came
went
on,
along with it.
Of course they did. And now, I mean, Liz Truss, when she was the only Prime Minister, Tory Prime Minister, who tried to break that chain. And look what happened to her through the Bank of England and the such like, and she was vilified and the such like, and this is the problem we've got, and this is the reason why we're doing what we're doing with the veterans, for example, because we know that whoever wins the next general election, the first thing that they have to do is they have to dissemble the establishment, because at the moment every single part of the establishment is run by, I would say, Fabianism.
Yeah.
That's exactly what. So all the department heads and the such like the whole thing is being controlled, and the first thing you have to do, and they are the reason why we've got a problem with immigration. They are the reason why we've got a problem with Islamification or Islamic extremism, so you have to. Whoever comes into power, whether it be Reform, Restore, the Tories, the first thing they've got to do is break that apart. Because if they don't, nothing will change. Immigration will not change. We'll still see the onslaught of Islamic extremism.
Yeah.
And
looking at that story just today, the one about the contract for the offshore wind company to provide all these boats to pick people up. This is in the same background with the background of Shabana Mahmood telling us, we're cracking down on the boats. We're making sure that fewer of them are coming. Well, it doesn't look like it. You've just signed a contract for 30 million quid.
They've got no interest in stopping it. They want it to. They need it to continue the way it is because they need to build this boiling pot up. This is the point. Nothing they're doing right now is by accident. It's not a stupid mistake. It is all by design. They know exactly what they're doing.
Is it not more that they've just been able to see that they can do it because of all the things that they put in place before, because of the Blair kind of creation of the establishment being now a left-wing establishment? Because it wasn't always a left-wing establishment.
No.
It didn't used to be.
No.
It is now.
It is now,
right?
absolutely.
And because now they've got that, they can sort of move on to the next stage, if you like.
Yeah, I mean, they control mainstream media.
Because they'd probably, I presume they would rather be able to control everything without having to cause everything to blow up first, right? So they'd rather control it by sort of, if you like, stealth rather than by doing what you're suggesting, which is to create a kind of a kind of a civil war scenario.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what they're trying. But their biggest fear are the British people.
Yeah.
The biggest fear is the population of this country.
Yeah.
And that is why they're trying to divide us, so we're not talking to each other.
Yeah.
That is exactly why we're doing what we're doing with the veterans. So we have this concept where we are going to, this is all absolutely bottom level, community watch, community support groups, veteran-led. So they'll go into because we're in all the communities. The veterans, we've got 2 million veterans in this country. We're in the communities, and the idea is to do 3 things basically. First one is to protect, but protect by surveillance only, so that we don't liaison with the police. So they'll just keep eyes and ears out to look after people. The second thing is they're going to be teaching. We're going to be teaching local community about survival skills, about technology, and about this. So the veterans are going and members of the community who have the expertise are going to do that. And then the third part, which is I think is the most important part, is they're going to get the communities to talk to each other, cross community, left versus right, and such like. Because this is the problem we have now: is there is no debate. There's no debate. The conversation gets cut off right at the beginning. And the idea is to build a network across the whole country, and we're doing quite well actually at the moment, across the whole country. So what we're doing is giving the British people a voice. And of course, we know we're going to get censored.
Right.
We know we're going to get cut down, and we have a way. We have a way to.
And how are you managing to run the organisation as such? I mean, because it costs money to do stuff like that, doesn't it?
We're all doing it voluntarily.
Are you?
We're all doing it voluntarily. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And we've got, I've got a great group of people that I'm working with, all veterans. A great group of people we're working with, and they're all, and there are lots of organisations in the UK at the moment established. They're already ahead of the game, and they're doing this. They're doing
the guys in Crowborough for a start.
Yeah, exactly. And you see. I mean, I think there was a protest down in the Pink Ladies went down there on was it Sunday or Saturday or Sunday, and there was a couple of organisations down there, veterans organisations that are down there to support them, to provide logistics and such like. So there's definitely a will now.
Yeah.
The veterans in particular.
People have had enough. I mean, I hear from people who I've known for years who were otherwise completely and utterly benign when it came to politics and very sort of, I don't know, live and let live type people who are now just really angry about what they're seeing and what's happening because they're being affected by it.
And the anger is fully justified. But like I said, there is a reason for that. Every time Keir Starmer stands up in front of people, he knows that he's agitating people. He knows it's all done by design. He knows that people are screaming at the TV screens and calling him a wanker and all the other bits and pieces. He knows that. It's part of it.
He can't not know it, can he? I mean, he must know.
This is all psychological operations.
Yeah.
I'm really not being conspiracy theorist about this, but that's exactly what's going on. And the problem is that people can't see that.
But you think it can be stopped?
I think if we adopt the approach that we're adopting at the moment, certainly doing what we're doing with the veterans, because I've been trying to solve this or try to solve this problem for a long time now, and I've looked at various different options. I've spoken to the political parties. I've offered support and such like, and this is I think this is the best way to do it. You have to give the people a voice, and you also need to make them aware of what's going on, because they don't know what's going on. We need to prepare. We need to prepare everyone for what might be round the corner, even if it is worst case scenario. It doesn't matter. At least they need to be aware of what's going on, and they're not at the moment. And everyone's sitting there going, "Oh, don't worry, it'll be all right on that." It won't be all right on the night. It won't be all right on the night. And we're. I mean, this is the greatest threat to our future. This is worse than World War II in terms of where we're headed right now. If you ask someone to paint a vision of where we're going to be in 10 years' time on the current trajectory, it would horrify people.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I mean, and also as our kids get fewer and fewer opportunities to do anything that they want to do, as they have little kind of hope for being able to get a job or being able to get any kind of money together.
But that's the thing, it's the future for our kids. It's the future
you
for our
have
kids.
to think about that, because I don't know where they're going to be in 10 years' time.
Well, no, we've our young generation in particular, they've had a really quite shit time.
Yeah.
They've gone through austerity, they've gone through COVID, they've been mollycoddled by the academia system. They've become the snowflake generation. They've been told they're wonderful. They go into work life and suddenly realise that life is very different and that kind of thing. So they've had a really tough time.
So many of them have been brainwashed into thinking that what's happening is a good thing, though.
But this is the brilliance of the Fabian agenda. This is decades of indoctrination. The Fabians basically, they didn't create wokeism in its current in its sort of form, but that's exactly what they're doing. You indoctrinate a nation over a long enough period of time to think that this is right and this is wrong. It becomes normal. It becomes acceptable, and that's exactly what's happened to the kind of the woke generation right now. And they genuinely think that what they're shouting about is the right thing to do, but it's not. And then if you're outside of that box and you're going, hang on a minute, that's not right, you're then considered the extremist. And that's where they've got to today. I'm an extremist.
That's what they're trying to do, for sure.
I've been called racist, xenophobic, misogynist constantly by people as a sort of an immediate retort.
And what sort of people are telling you that? What sorts of people are saying that?
My brother called it that me this morning.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of people are finding that their own families are having rows with them.
This is the problem.
Because they can't see what you're telling them,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
example.
yeah.
And it's a shocking state of affairs,
Yeah.
really. But the good thing is that there are people like you talking about it, and there are places like this where
Yeah.
you can talk about it. And the most important thing for me is that we can continue to do that for as long as we need to do it for.
Well, yeah,
effectively. I mean, if people want to get involved with the Veterans Alliance, what do they do?
I do want to say something about that. So we've got a sort of placeholder at the moment called Frontline Alliance, and we're putting together a sort of digital infrastructure and that kind of thing. So if people want to help and get involved, then they can get involved in that.
Okay.
And not just veterans, but non-veterans as well. And actually, most of the people that have come to us so far have been non-veterans. We want to help. We want to be part of this.
Yeah.
And they're very happy with the concept of this being veteran-led.
Yeah.
That's important because us veterans, we know how to work as a team. We know how to lead. We know how to communicate and all that kind of stuff. So that's the important part. But the idea is to force the issue with the right parties as well. So we want to, we want to get the right parties in a position where when they come into power, they have to implement these things. Otherwise, we're not going to be in 10 years' time where we need to be, which is a secure, sovereign, democratic state.
Yes.
So that's the idea.
Okay.
Anyway, glad to see that England is still in the World Cup. And I was
surprisingly,
particularly-
quite a lot of countries which are not in the World Cup. I woke up this morning thinking, blimey, Germany are out. The Americans went out last night, despite the Trump intervention.
That was poetic justice.
Which was poetic justice, as Mark Littlewood, who's on today at 12 o'clock, said last night. That the Americans have created 8 billion fans of Belgium, basically, overnight, which everybody wanted to see. And of course, Portugal are now out as well.
Brazil
are out. So it's turning into quite an interesting competition.
It's very interesting. And I have to say, for the first time in the World Cup, I was so proud of the way that the team played.
Yeah.
But what was wonderful was kind of after that and the feeling, generally speaking, because they were kind of representing the way British people, what British people are thinking right now. And I'd love them to go forward. And
there was a lovely clip actually that I saw on social media of John Stones afterwards in the dressing room. I don't know if you've seen it.
No,
where
I
Thomas
haven't seen
Tuchel was there and they were all sort of singing and dancing and John Stones pretending he'd hurt his shoulder.
Yeah.
And it was a very kind of British moment, if you like, an English moment where, what we do is we make fun of things. And, and Tuchel was really concerned. It looked like he was holding his arm like this. And then he just sort of started moving it. And then he started just punching the air. It was just very funny. And I just thought, if they've got that sort of humour, because that's what we have in this country, if we can keep our sense of humour, we're going to be in a good place.
I was going to say that is the one thing, and you don't really see very much of it. We have the most unique, yes, sarcastic, but the best sense of humour.
Totally.
And when we lose that, we will lose our identity.
Well, one of the things that the socialists hate is humour.
Yeah,
they really can't. They can't stand it if
yeah.
you take the piss out of them.
Yeah,
so that's
absolutely.
what I continue to do relentlessly, which I will continue.
Sort of
to
the
do.
era of Monty Python and Blackadder and the such like, and that
totally.
we need to get that back.
We must absolutely. Well, listen, great to see you again.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed.
Watts, and I'm sure we'll be talking again.
I would love to come down. I've got too much to say.
No, you haven't. There's no such thing as having too much to say.
Yeah.
We're a speech station, so we need lots of people with lots of things to say. So thank you very much indeed, Major Alex Watts. Is it too late to do the news now?
Yeah, we'll go straight to the later.
We're not going to bother. Right. So talking of humour, this woman is possibly one of the most talented women I think I've ever known. She is, of course, Intel lady, but she's joining us as one of her alter egos, Meghan Markle. Hi, Meghan.
Good morning, Mike. I have absolutely no idea who this Intel lady is. She sounds like an imposter, but I'm here today to say I love the British people so much. That's so true. I really do.
I know you do. And we miss you as well, in some ways, but possibly not in the ways that you think. Because we used to laugh at you quite a lot, Meghan. And because we couldn't believe that you didn't actually think that you weren't the first princess of Kensington.
Okay, I don't know who booked me on this show. This is not what I was expecting, because I'm here to speak to the British people about how much myself and my husband absolutely love the United Kingdom. We love it so much. My husband is actually here in the United Kingdom. I'm not. I'm still elsewhere with my children who have emojis for faces. And I just feel so strongly that the British people need to re-embrace him into their arms. No matter, let everything go that has gone before. Don't think about it, because we suddenly remember that we love you all so much. We love you. We really do. Buy my products. Buy my products.
Yeah, how is the jam going? Have you still got some for sale?
Well, jam is my jam, and I absolutely love jam, but I cannot actually sell it as jam because it doesn't pass as jam. It doesn't have enough sugar or something. I don't know. I'm just so healthful, so I didn't put enough sugar into the jam, so we have to call it fruit spread. And you know something? Like, it's selling so well. It really is. So we've sold millions and millions of these beautiful, delicious, healthful fruit spreads. So it's going so well.
But you see, I keep hearing as well, Megan, that yes, the business is going well, but it's not going as well as you need it to go, because obviously your security alone is worth something like £5 million a year. How are you going to be able to continue to pay for that unless you do another series on Netflix?
Well, we have so much on the slate right now. You have no idea. Everybody at Netflix absolutely loves us as a couple. They're not tired of us at all. That's not true at all. And we are putting together some incredible shows. We're doing one about my mother-in-law, my mother-in-law, and her legacy and her life, because we knew her so well. And if anybody needs to do a documentary about that, it would be myself and my husband. And I just feel as though that is going to put us back on the map. Netflix is going to eat it up. And everybody needs to hear more about our special relationship with the princess. And I feel so close. I feel as though she's speaking to me from beyond the grave, because I married her son. And I know that together with the help of, I'm working with psychics as well, we can really communicate with the late, beautiful princess, who I totally respect, and produce a incredible piece, an incredible documentary about her life. It's going to be beautiful.
Will you play her?
Oh, Mike, what a crazy question. No, I'm a director and producer now. I don't do acting anymore. I was so good at it. I can't do it anymore. I have to open up the space, because everybody deserves a seat at the table and they should be allowed to play these parts. I'm just going to sit back and take all of the glory for producing such an incredible piece of work. It's going to be incredible, Mike. It's going to be
Well, do you know, we're reading this morning, Megan, that the king, your father-in-law, has lost patience with your husband, Harry, because he couldn't make up his mind. He didn't want to stay in Buckingham Palace, then he did want to stay in Buckingham Palace, now he can't stay in Buckingham Palace. That's a bit of a problem, isn't it?
Well, again, this is not true. There was a miscommunication. I've had a lot of issues with miscommunications in my life and misrememberings of things that happened and didn't happen. And I think there was a miscommunication and a misremembering, and wires got crossed. Wires got crossed, and I think that is the reason why this is falling. But also, they're really racist. They are racist, and I think that's the problem with what's going on here.
I see. Meanwhile, where is he going to stay? Because, you know, last time he was here, we saw him wandering around the streets of southwest London looking for something or somebody. Or maybe he was looking for Charlotte Griffiths, you know, the girl that he used to call Charlotte G-string.
No. This is all fake news. This is fake. None of this is true. This is why we're trying to shut down the internet, because all of these stories and AI generated photographs of my husband outside somebody's house in Fulham, it's not true. These are not real. This is not real. And I need to make sure that people understand that we're so attacked, Mike. We are so attacked. It's so terrible. And none of this is true. And he has so many friends in London. So many friends. So many friends. He hasn't lost any of them. They all love him. And he has cousins who have places that he can stay. And we love Eugenie and Beatrice. And we know that they will make sure he has a roof over his head.
We thought maybe he might stay with his Uncle Andrew.
We hardly know him. We hardly know him, Mike. We don't know him at all. I didn't even know who he was when we met him and he was holding the Queen's handbag. And I said, who is that guy? Who is that man? I've definitely never met him on a yacht. Never met him ever. And so we don't really know him.
No. And did you see that Pizza Express actually ran their own investigation into him to see whether he'd ever been to their restaurant in 2001, and they couldn't find out whether he had or not?
I don't really know Pizza Express. I don't know any of these people. So I have absolutely no idea what I stay out of everything to do with the royals. I have nothing to do with them whatsoever. I don't even want my own crown, my own tiara. I have nothing to do with these people. And if they are doing disgusting things with people, allegedly disgusting things, that has nothing to do with me. So I have no comment.
Is it true that you've fallen out with your formerly good friend, Oprah Winfrey?
No, that is not true. Oprah loves me and we love Oprah. I poured out my heart to Oprah. I poured out my heart to her and she could feel how racially abused I was being. And she knows that so well. And you could see she was so shocked of everything we had to deal with when we were part of the institution that tore us apart. And she has our back complete. Mike, she has our back. And I am so grateful. I love her so much, Mike. And she loves me too. But she loves me more than I love her. So.
The British people have spoken. We did a poll today. I'm not sure if we can show Meghan this poll. Can we, Charlotte? Yeah. What should we do with Harry was the first question. Send him to the Tower, 15%. Exile him to the Chagos Islands, 7%. Yeah. Make him live with his Uncle Andrew, 30%. Or they all decided actually the worst punishment was to make him stay married to Meghan, 49%. Okay,
well, it's not a punishment because he loves me so much. My husband loves me so much. Sometimes I just get so emotional just thinking about how much he loves me and our children with emojis for faces. And I get so emotional. I just cry. I release a tear from my left eye. And it's not a punishment for us to be together. It's forever love.
And will you be joining him in London or not?
I don't want to give anything away. I don't want to spoil any surprises that we may have up our sleeves. And I just know that if I do join him, it's going to be a beautiful experience and also potentially a harrowing experience because we could be racially abused. But also, I am also so busy selling my fruit spread and spreading love, not just spreading spread, but also spreading love and joy everywhere, that I might not actually have time to come over and spend time in the UK, who loves me. UK loves me so much. But if I do, it'll be a beautiful and also harrowing experience.
Well, Meghan, it's been very kind of you to take the time to talk to your beloved British audience who miss you very much and are really actually quite glad you're not coming.
Okay, well, I miss them too, and I don't know how I feel about this interview, but I feel victimized. And I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book about how victimized you've just made me, and I'm going to accuse you of all sorts of things now. So you've really done something here, and it's not good for you.
Thank you. Okay. Meghan Markle, ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Harry Wales, whatever you want to call her. Look at the state of her. Brilliant. Intel lady, fantastic woman. Now, lastly, before we go, Kelvin Mackenzie's here at 10 o'clock, but let's do a bit of Pooch's Pooch, shall we?
Let's go.
Here he comes, yay! Come here. Hey! Ready to go?
This is bad, isn't it?
Não tem as manhas, não entra não. Tem a instrução de um profissional.
Can't figure it out.
You can do it. Oh.
Brilliant. Fantastic. What a great show. Alex, thank you very much again for being here. We tried to finish on a humorous note, so I think we managed that. We'll be back, of course, tomorrow at 7 o'clock sharp. You don't want to miss that. Lots going on for Wednesday. I'm not sure if there's a PMQs, don't know. Right now, there's time for Kelvin Mackenzie over on UK Live. You don't want to miss that. I'm going to be going over there to have a chat to him for 10 minutes as well. We'll see you in a moment.